Today, I'm going to be doing something that's never been done before and breaking down everything I did to get Challenger in League of Legends. Now, for those of you new to the channel, I was a former pro player for 8 years, and I've been in Challenger for over 10 seasons now, even hitting rank 1 multiple times and hitting Challenger on 5 different servers. And today, I'm going to be breaking down everything I did to Challenger this year in the Korean server, including my champion pool, my gameplay, even how to optimize your mindset to deal with tilt and big loss streaks. On top of all that, I'm even going to be showing my own personal notes and schedule, so literally everything you need to climb will be in this video, so let's get started. First up, we're going to be covering champion pool, because no matter what role you play, no matter what rank you are, getting your champion pool locked in before you start your climb is extremely important. In my opinion, most of the content in this video will apply to every single role, even though I mainly make top lane content, and champion pool is no exception. So I'll start off by talking about my champion pool that I locked in for this recent climb, and I'll talk about the variables you should be keeping in mind and things to watch out for. So, as you can see on your screen right now, this was my champion pool. Initially starting off my climb, my main blinds were Jax and Olaf, two of my best 4 or 5 champions, and then my counter picks were Zahin, Camille, Zilean, and Malphite. Now Zilean might be a bit of a shock, given I only played him like 2 or 3 games top. He's more of a niche situational champion. You don't need weirdo champs in your pool like that. I just wanted him there for a bit of fun. But as you'll see by my OPGG, I'll put it on the screen right now, I didn't really use my counter picks so much. In fact, I didn't even use Malphite at all. Most of these Zilean games were support or mid. They were my off-roll games, and only like 3 of them were in top lane. So I'd say 80 or 85% of my games were on my main blinds. And this is extremely important. No matter what champions you play, you need 1 or 2 champions, mainly one that you're confident to play in any matchup. This is the most important thing. Having a main blind that you can play in hard games is the top priority. 90% of questions I get asked about champion pool is related to, I don't really like playing my champion into these 3 or 4 matchups. What champion should I play into them? And the most optimal is always, no, just learn those matchups and you're going to do way better on your climb. Because even if you have a counter to those 4 or 5 annoying matchups, you still have to blind pick in some games anyway. So there's no getting around it. You just have to. You have to learn to play the hard matchups on your champions. And that was one of the most impactful things in terms of champion pool related to this climb. So I'll showcase my off-roll champs as well. Jungle, I just my main top lane champs, Olaf and Jax. I didn't actually have to play jungle or AD carry in this climb, but that's what I would have played if I did get filled those roles. Mid, Zilean, you could have just played your main champions there. If you're a Necton guy, you can just play that mid. You can play Jax mid. I've seen players like Raider do that. It's perfectly fine. But I've got Zilean in my pool for some reason, so I might as well use him in mid. And then Camille or Olaf if it doesn't really look like that good of a Zilean game. But I only played 1 game of Camille mid, no games of Olaf mid, so it was mainly Zilean every time I got off-roll to mid. Then AD carry, Jinx or Olaf. Olaf situational. No, I don't want to play Olaf into like a Zeri Lulu or something. So I would have just played Jinx because she's super easy. Anyone can play him. And then support Zilean or Camille. But this climb I only did Zilean because no matter what, especially with the autofill protection, I'm not getting below a C on Zilean. My Zilean's too cracked, so it's just way more consistent. Where a champ like Camille, or if you play Nautilus or Leona or Rel, they're kind of easier to intop. So I prefer off-rolling champions that's very easy to have consistent performances on. Now, talking about the main champion. So main blinds are the most important thing, and I even use these as counter picks more often than my counter picks. So you can just see champ mastery is just one of the most impactful things that you can work on. It's not about what is the most impactful champ. Okay, I can play Kennen into this champ. Next game, no Rumble, slightly more optimal. It's not about that. It's about over the course of 100 games being consistent on your champion. It's not about solo carrying every game with the perfect pick, because we're not robots that can play every champ perfectly. Even if right now I played 100 games of every champion in a row, then that'll take too long, but I still wouldn't be equally skilled at them. It's really important to develop that mastery on your main blind. So now, on my pool, I started with 2 main blinds, because these are the 2 champs I've been playing for years and years and years. I was super confident on them, but I actually swapped to 1 main blind halfway through my journey when I hit my first roadblock. One thing I realized just going through my notes, watching the games, it was too hard for me to work on the 1%ers on Jax and Olaf at the same time. Because let's just say I lost a game on Olaf where I wasted my summoner spells, right? I got caught inside, lost Ghost and Flash, something like that. And then the next game it's Jackson. I have a separate problem, which is queuing in at the wrong time, taking bad trades, and I'm going back and forth, back and forth. It's pretty hard to work on them at the same time. It's like doing 5 minutes of an arm day and then just randomly swapping to legs for no reason. It's not as consistent as just sticking to arms for the rest of the day or sticking to legs, anything like that. So I found to really develop the 1%ers, which is way more important in GM channel lobbies, those 1%, 5% little advantages. I wanted to work on 1 at a time. So I decided Olaf over Jax just because I was more confident in the meta matchups. Right now, the champions I verse every game pretty much. Ambessa, Rumble, Jace, all these broken champs that are really strong in lane. Jax struggles into them a bit more. I struggle into them a bit more as Jax because I would just randomly queue in for no reason at the wrong time. So I decided to go for Olaf. Olaf was more consistent. If I only played Jax, if Olaf wasn't in my pool, then I would just learn it. I would study the matchups more, like I did for Olaf. I studied a lot of Olaf versus Rumble, Olaf versus Mbessa. I would have done the same thing for Jax if I chose him as my main blind. So say you're in a situation where Jax or Camille or Riven's your main blind, you don't have to add a second champ. I just had two champs because a benefit of playing pro, which is also a weakness, my champ pool is quite big, but that means my top 1% champs aren't as good as people that have been one-tricking in solo queue for 10 years. So I wanted my Olaf to get to that territory where I could beat pro players playing meta champs, where I could beat one-tricks playing their one-tricks. So I got my Olaf to that level. And that's really, really important. I got to the point where I don't even care what matchup they play. If I verse a good matchup, sweet. If I verse Varus, awesome. If I verse Mbessa, Rumble, doesn't matter. Of course, I'd rather verse a free matchup like a Malphite. I'd rather verse Malphite or Gragas more than Rumble, of course, because Rumble is OP and hard for Olaf. But I was confident. No matter what matchup you give me, I'm going to go even CS. I'm going to go 10 CS per minute. I'm going to be perfectly fine in these matchups. So that once I get to that level, that's when I really started to have really consistent performances and win way more often. So the number one learning here is, of course, on top of this, you need to learn to play your champ in hard games. Stop trying to solve difficulty with new item builds or with new champions. You need to learn how to play Riven into Poppy or into Renekton or Ken, all those hard games. You need to learn how to play Camille into Warwick, these really annoying matchups, because if you don't, you're not going to climb. You just can't swap your champion every time you hit a roadblock. Now, of course, that doesn't mean, hey, play your same champ every day your whole life. Of course, League can be fun, if you're to mix it up a little bit. It really go on little champ holidays, take breaks on your champs, but in terms of consistent climb, when you're locking in, you really want to hit your rank goal, you need to learn how to play your champion in hard games, and you can do that through just playing them in those hard games, reviewing your mistakes, and watching other people play your champion. I watched 2 or 3 other Olaf players that have hit Challenger last season on him, or they Challenger now, and I just watched them play matchups. Even though there's a little bit of ego talking, I feel like I could outperform them on Olaf. I still watched and noted the little things that they did differently to me. Some of them played more aggressive than I would have, some of them played more passive, and I just sort of really built my own understanding of how I want to play that matchup through watching them. So one thing as well I briefly mentioned, prioritize your main over counter picks. Even though I have 4 counter picks in my pool here, I would still rather play Olaf or Jax if it's good games for them. The reason why I even have counter picks in, there are just games where, not hard games, but I just really don't want to play them. So especially when one is banned and the other is taken, something like that, I need one. But I'll show some examples on the screen. But you can see games like this where Jax is banned, Olaf is just straight dog shit, Zahin is better. Or again, if like Jax is banned and they show Riven or something like that, Zahin does quite well into Riven, Olaf really struggles, so sometimes I'll do it for matchup as well. Now, Camille is just sort of here. There are certain games where Camille is amazing with like Galio and stuff like that, but again, it's pretty rare that there's a game where Camille is great and Olaf and Jax are not good, mainly when one of them or 2 of them are banned. So I just had some counter picks in there just in case, or with Zillion, I would play him when I had like a Master Yi and my matchup wasn't that hard, or like a Xin Zhao. That's when he's good. So kind of, you can see it's like what, 15, 12 out of 100 games, 110 games that my counter picks were more useful. So they do exist, but because you're only playing your counter picks in perfect spots, you don't need as high mastery as your main blind. So that's really important as well. Don't play your counter picks just because. You can see my win rates in KDA look good on them, but I didn't fall into the trap this climb of, oh, I'm winning a lot on Zahin and Camille. My KDA is so good, I should play them more. It's not like that. I'm winning most of my games on them because the sample size is small and I'm only playing them in perfect spots. So that's really important as well. And you can see there are probably games where Malphite would have been good, but I'd rather always play Olaf or Jax, my main blinds here. But later on in my climb, I kind of put Jax into counterpick territory and made Olaf my main blind, because as I'm versing GM and Chell players, I really wanted that extra 1 to 2%, especially consistent early game was a big learning objective for me. So I'll talk about that when we get to the notes section. But my learning objective, which was very consistent early game, high CS, low deaths, jungle tracking, all of that stuff, instead of solo kill addiction, I was doing that way better on Olaf. I was developing that skill a lot better, so I wanted to keep up that momentum. Now, one thing as well I do want to mention, enjoying your main is important. So it wasn't just that I was playing worse on Jax and Olaf, I was enjoying Olaf way more. I was having a lot of fun on him, getting the new TP, the home guards feel quite good on him because you can sneak recalls, get your mana back. The new crit build that I've been messing around with made it super fun. So I was just enjoying him way more as well, and enjoying your champ is the most important. You can look at my tier list and your main might be in B tier and your second champ might be in A tier, but if you enjoy your main more, that's A tier for you. That's better for you to play than a champion that's slightly more optimal. Like right now, I think Jax is a stronger solo queue champ than Olaf, but my Olaf is way better than my Jax in solo queue as of right now. especially as a blind pick. So that's why enjoying your main, really, really important, because you're excited to learn how to play him in those hard games. Now, the final thing I want to mention for champ pool, playstyle versus what's optimal. So that's sort of it. The way I was playing was more optimal for me on Olaf, and also the crit build that I talked about. It wasn't the most optimal build in every game that I built it. Rev Hydra wasn't as optimal in every game that I built it. I still think it's really good in good games for it, but I was sort of forcing my own playstyle a little bit more than what's optimal, because we're not AIs that just play perfectly on every build, every situation. You might do better, which is why some one tricks build terribly, but they enjoy it and they are doing better with that, because not every build is like, this is the best and this is the worst. It's not like that. Builds have strengths and weaknesses. Of course, if you're building AP on Garen, that's terrible, and there are some things that are objectively the best, like Stride Breaker on Garen. First item, there's no reason to build anything else, that's just objective strength. But for Olaf, there are games where Rev Hydra is most optimal, and the crit build, there are games where Stride Breaker is most optimal, but I was sort of cheesing in my favorite playstyle a bit more, because I enjoy it more, and I'd perform better on it because I was enjoying it more as well. So don't feel like you have to watch the lol analytics, this build has a 57% win rate, but I like this 53. Who cares? Just build what works, as long as you're not building AP Garen or something stupid. Just build what you're enjoying or feels good for you. And if you don't know what's good, you can just look up any one trick and copy the build. It's probably going to be fine. So definitely, I'd say the main takeaways here, regardless of your role, your rank, anything like that, one main blind. You need one main blind and start to really enjoy the process of figuring out, how do I win in these hard games? How do I win this shit matchup that I hate? If you ever have a roadblock champion, a mental block champ, you see them pick one and you slump in your chair a little bit, you need to learn those hard matchups. That is the most important thing. You cannot try to swap champion. You need to learn how to play your champ in those hard games. And if you can do that, you'll truly start to do it very, very well in solo queue. Moving on to the laning phase, where I'm going to be breaking down the most impactful changes I made to my lane phase overall, and then showcasing some examples. So to get straight into it, the biggest change I made was consistency. In my opinion, the most important thing by far for a laner is consistent performances. So my average performance is way higher than it was before. Even though last season I had more games where I 1v9 the game and solo carried, I also had way more games where I ruined the game, where I got farmed by the enemy jungler mainly, and the enemy jungler carried the game, and I'd be complaining in my head secretly, jungle gap a little bit, but in reality, I snowballed the jungler. And dying to the enemy jungle is way worse for the game than dying to your lane, because if you feed lane, you can contain it. If you die to the enemy jungler, now all of a sudden they clear their camps faster, they win the bot 3v3, they can gank mid with stronger items. It just really ruins the game. They can use that lead to keep it going and going and going, where if you get a solo kill in lane, you're still kind of stuck there. You know, some champs can proxy and sometimes you get those little windows to roam around, but I'd say most of the time, you're not going to leave your lane until your second TP, or your first free TP, or second dragon, something like that. Around 11 to 12 minutes, when you got that first item done, is when you can leave consistently. That's half the game done. So feeding the enemy jungler, especially after their first clear, really ruins the game, and that's a habit I pretty much removed completely. And the way I did that is, before the season started, so around December, I started watching the best EU solo queue player and the best NA one. So I watched Raider go from EU, in my opinion, he's the best solo queue top laner there, and I watch Viper from NA. Even though Viper doesn't play any of the champs I played, he plays like Vayne and Riven, there is still learning to take. That's the thing, you can never blame, oh, this champ's so good. There are still things they're doing well on those champions. So from Viper, I learned, okay, even though you're playing Riven, super snowbally champion, and I touched on this in my video, most of the time you're not dying. I say the 30 or 40 games that I watched from his Riven, he didn't die to a gank, and that blew me away. That was the most impressive thing by far. Him being rank 1, 2, 3, that's pretty cool, but him not dying to a gank in 30 or 40 games as Riven, that completely blew me away. So I really, really valued that, and I took that to heart. And from Raider, I was watching him climb in Korea, and I thought, okay, he's probably just smashing his lane opponent a lot more than me, stuff like that. But no, he was going even in the hard matchups. He could play Jax vs Rumble, Jax vs Mbessa, and go even, and if his opponent made a mistake, he could heavily punish them. Of course, not saying he didn't get kills, of course he did, but his average was way, way, way more consistent. His average was insane. So that's sort of one thing. Okay, they're two of the best players in their region, and I see a trend there. Low devs, high CS, never dying to ganks. This is sort of a gameplay I want to learn and practice and add to my own gameplay there. So the goal in my games were consistency, way less mental stack towards trading and killing, and break that sort of top lane urge, that top lane instinct to kill your opponent 5 times and make them quit the game. That was a hard thing for me to focus on. So I prioritized always surviving ganks, tracking support, tracking mid, tracking jungle is way more impactful for me. Way more important than snowballing my lead. Even if I had a lead, not dying to the gank is way more important than killing my lane again. Even if I'm 0-0, my lane's in a stuck position, surviving the jungle gank that could come, I valued that way more. And there are of course going to be some opportunities I missed, and I'm okay with that. Now, last year I wasn't okay with that. Not okay with winning a hard matchup and then being stuck. Now I'm okay with that, and that really, really helped me be consistent overall. So high elo solo queue. So especially when you start to get to GM Chell, that's when the sort of the priority, the way that you win games is different. You've probably heard people say the way you win games in different brackets is different. So playing in silver, the way that the most optimal way to play is different to the way you play in emerald, and same with master and shell and all that good stuff. So the most consistent way to play in GM shell is more so impacting the game as a whole. Of course, if you verse an autofill or your opponent makes a mistake, you can farm them. But I'd say, to be honest, most of the games I'm not exploding the tower and getting 3 solo kills and winning that way. I've got really high farm, never missing a back timer, you know, attacking the map, roaming mid anytime there's an opportunity, really good TPs bottom. That's the way I'm winning games now. It's not about exploiting your lane every time, especially for my champ pool. Keep in mind, this is kind of related to your champion pool. But one thing that was good is Raider's pool was similar to mine. He mains Darius and plays Jax. I play Olaf and Jax, so the champ pool is quite similar. But if you were to play Teemo, or you play Aurora or Kennen, it's a bit different. You need to be getting leads in your lane consistently. So the champions I play in this meta, it's not a consistent strategy to beat GM and Chow, Rumbles, and Abysses and farm them. But to be honest, at this point, I have been doing quite well against them. I have been killing them. I'm not saying that's not happening, but that's not the way I'm winning. I'm not winning because going into a game, if they play well, you're not farming them. So that means you don't have a win condition if that's what you're used to. And a lot of people struggle with that, especially in Masters, because in Diamond and Emerald, you can kind of farm your lane and exploit the tower and carry him. But when you start versing, you know, Master players or GM or Chow, it's a bit harder and they really struggle to adapt. So this was the biggest adaptation I made. My baseline level of gameplay. Of course, some games I did a bit worse than that. Some games I did a bit better. But my baseline average was probably 9 or 10 tears per minute from lane, a couple of tower plates from crusting, and getting my first item without dying to a gank. That was my default average. And even if I died once to a 1v1 or sometimes to a gank, that would stay like that. 0-1 with good farm. Maybe being 10 or 15 tears below my opponent. So that was my default gameplay. Really important. But I do want to mention, this is really impactful for GM and Chell. So I do recommend if you are a lower ranked player below Emerald, especially, you need to be more willing to feed, because you need to be willing to carry to improve. I'm at the point now where if my opponent messes up, I will kill them and I will carry the game, of course. But it's more about punishing my opponent's mistakes. But in silver or in bronze or in gold, they're making so many mistakes. It is a consistent strategy for you to farm them and blow up the tower every game. Right now, I could play Soraka top in gold and I would solo kill any opponent I verse at level 3 or 4, right? Because they're making so many mistakes. So I'm not going to do that, of course, but they're making so many mistakes. It's a viable strategy to win in those ranks. But the higher you go, the less viable it is. And especially for Master Plus players, it's really important for you to have a consistent baseline instead. Again, it depends on your champ pool as well. If you are a Ken and Aurora player, you need to do a bit better in lane. And if or a champion like Warwick, you do need to snowball a bit more. But I think Viper was a good example. Riven, there was a lot of games where he didn't solo kill his opponent, but he was very, very impactful in the early game, and that's how he won his games quite often. Now, as well, one thing I want to mention, when I talked to Galban King, which was the Challenger Garen one trig, one thing that he said to me that opened my eyes when I was going through all the matchups, and he put more champions in hard and opponent favored than in easy. And I'm like, how do you win all these matchups? When I watch your VODs, you're saying all these matchups are unplayable. When I ask him, he's like, I don't have permission to approach the wave. You know, I can't win these lanes. But when I watch his VODs, he wins. And I asked him, like, how is that possible then if there are so many bad matchups? And he said, it's not really that I'm winning the lane. It's just them making a mistake and I'm punishing them for it. And that's a mindset I kind of have now, especially when playing on, you know, in the GM Chow lobbies, when I verse good players. It's more about, I'm not solo killing you, you just messed up. And that kind of really helped me lower the ego a little bit. That top lane instinct of dominating my opponent 1v1. I'm not really dominating him. He just messed up and allowed me to solo kill him. And I don't know, that mindset shift kind of helped me a little bit, because it's not like I was so hungry to kill him and show him that I'm better and make him quit the game, you know, anything like that. It was just more so, I'm going to get high CS, track jungle, be always ready for a mid roam or anything good opportunity. And if you slip up, then I will kill you. That is the mindset that really, really helped me break out of that top lane caveman instinct. Now I'm going to be going through some specific examples of exactly what I meant about my new approach to laning, focusing more so on high CS, jungle tracking, consistency, spreading that lead around the map, and solo killing your opponent being more so punishing mistakes. So as I mentioned, CS missed the very first one, classic. Then my goal here in this matchup is to go for a slow push into a 3-wave crash and try get a cheater off, because if he gets priorities, level 2 vs 1, he can pressure me quite hard. So I'm looking for just a nice slow push on wave 1 and 2, and a crash on wave 3 if I can. Level 1 Varus isn't that strong, so I'm not too worried about that. So slow pushing this wave, slow push, nothing to see here. Sometimes I'll go for a level 1 volatile situation versus Varus, but my Lee Sin was pathing down in the situation, so I didn't look for it in this game, and Varus watered the bush quite well. So wave 3, time to nuke the wave. If I don't nuke this wave, Varus is going to trim it and freeze it outside of his tower, so I must get this wave in as quickly as possible. And I see Vi on the Raptors, so there's no worry here. So we got 17 out of 19 CS, so not the best performance, but definitely not too shabby. ward on our way back, sell potion, longsword, and refill. So we're in a really consistent position right now. So pulling the wave up here, you can see it's more about wave control, back time is CSing. I haven't really interacted with them that much. If their Q hits, I wouldn't look for something because I'm not quite level 4. I'm going to look for a timer at level 4, of course so. So we're just playing it slow. That doesn't mean I'm not going to trade at all. So I hit that Q, not quite level 4 yet, so didn't want to go on that timer. Trying to trim the wave, get my level 4 going, and then I'll go for him. So here we go, hit the Q. So the reason I'm not going for this, if we go back here, is I'm afraid of Vi. We saw Vi appear on Raptors here, so there's a good chance that Vi looks to gank top on this timer. So I'm playing very, very respectful, keeping that in mind. You can see the top missing ping on top crab. So even though I want to go down this Varus level 4 versus 4, if I get ganked by Vi, lose my sums, or at worst case die, that can really end my game. So I'm playing quite slow here. But you can see I'm not just accepting reality. Okay, Vi's there. Let me not kill this Varus player. Of course, look at my pings. I'm trying to get Lee Sin involved. I'm making it consistent. If you're here for the 2v2, we're guaranteed to win it. Now, Lee Sin thinks Gromp is better. Of course, that's his choice. So I'm just adapting. I'm adapting to his Gromp addiction. Just pulling the wave up, doing the best play I can with the situation. There we are. Vi, right on schedule, right there. And then I flash onto this Varus because I see Vi, so I can play the game. So I chunk this Varus quite low and burn his Ghost and Flash. And I'm able to, now I'm in a really, really good position because Varus is 1 HP under tower. I try to get Lee Sin involved. He thinks Wolves is better. To be honest, he's actually right here. He should just do Wolves in his 3 bot camps, but I just pinged the opportunity anyway. So fishing for the Q there and just one-shotting this wave. And basing. This is the most consistent play I can do right now. Base, come back to lane. And look to punish him on my 6 timer when he has no summoner spells. So you can see a lot of thinking about my wave control, back time as jungler, all of that has been spot on. The only thing that's been, I'd say, mistakes is some of my Q usage. Apart from now, it's looking quite good. My Q usage and maybe missing 1 or 2 CS that I shouldn't. Other than that, it has been quite spot on. And that one ping for Lee Sin to come when he needs to farm, those are just small optimizations. And then here. So in this situation, I one-shot the wave and look for a roam mid, because I got nothing better to do. I'm not going to walk around chucking Qs at Varus, he's under tower, it's not going to do anything. So instead I'm going to look for a roam onto mid, and spread my power across the map. So here we go, hold my Q, he gets a stun, boom, clean kill, straight back to top. So you can see how impactful I've been, not just in form of ganking mid, burning top summon spells, giving options for my jungler that he didn't take this game, respecting the Vice path top, all of that kind of consistent gameplay that we're looking for. And then because I'm low on mana, we one-shot this wave, base again, straight back to lane. So we have even CS versus Varus top. We've burnt his sums, so I'm going to be looking for a timer here. Level 6 versus 6, this is a really good time to go. But he's got Swifty boots, I think, so it is quite hard. So I'll just take the nice short trade there. And dodge the Q because we're clean with it. And playing for this dive. No summoner spell Varus. We're looking, hit the Q. And of course he ultis my Lee Sin. That was pretty smart by him. And we pick up a nice clean kill. So you can kind of see this example, even though I was in a range top lane bully matchup. And yes, Olaf does have a pretty good time to Varus. If you hate missing Varus, by the way, Olaf is your solution here. Proxy the wave base. You can see how good of a stable condition we're in. And we took pretty much 0 risks in this lane here. Well, the next example, we have Jax up against Vladimir. So definitely a very hard counter matchup. So pulling the wave a little bit, so it comes back towards me. So this is an example of what I meant by saying I'm more about punishing my opponent's mistakes. I'm not solo killing Vlad in this matchup. If it's 2 AIs battling it out, Jax cannot kill Vlad. 2 pro players battling it out, if they're kind of equal skill, the Vlad will win the matchup. So I'm not going to be trying to actively just force onto him and play crazy and solo kill him. It's more about punishing mistakes. So I know Vlad gets power in this matchup, because if I try to push and take too much damage, I will get chunked out and it'll be hard to crash the wave. So I'm just playing for farm. So I'm playing mainly for farm as it comes in. So I'm just going to skip through a little bit. Basically, it's just CSing and a couple of trades that get me CS at the same time. So like boom, auto QE, trim away. Now keep in mind, this Vladimir was not a good Vlad player. He plays other champs, I can't remember. This VOD was early on in my climb, but he just picked Vlad as a Jax counter. So he made mistakes that I could punish. If I versed a GM or Chow Vlad one trick, he would very low chance make those same mistakes. So just farming. And I know my goal in this matchup is to farm the wave as it comes in, get as high CS as possible, and base and TP at a situation where I can, and then I'm TP versus Ignite. So if I have full HP, full mana, and item advantage, that's my main way to close the power gap against Ignite. So this is exactly what I did here. So I actually got 24 out of 25 of the first 4 waves. So mainly that's all mental stack towards CSing, TP back in, And this is what I mean by mistake. So I know how to play this matchup, wait out the Q2, wait out the Q2, punish when it's on cooldown, and it's 2 rounds. One to burn Vlad's W, because his W has an 11-second cooldown longer than my E. 17 versus 28. So one trade to burn his W, and one trade to punish when his W is on cooldown. So right now, if he was a good Vlad player, and he sat back here for 11 seconds, after my E comes back up, of course, I will just slow push this wave, hard push the next one. If he chunks me while hard pushing, I will base. That's what would happen on this freeze frame against a high level Vladimir player. And I'd ward after this wave as well to track jungle also. But this Vladimir was not a high level Vlad player, so I'm just punishing his mistake. Flash body, okay, he's not flashing, he's dead then. It's all about punishing the mistake. I did not outplay you. You just allowed me to kill you. I'm not in a matchup where I can force solo kills onto you like a Darius versus Nasus or something like that. That's a matchup where, if both players play well, Nasus is guaranteed to get behind. But in these matchups, and most matchups you're going to play in high elo, I'm not going to verse Nasus. I'm going to verse champs like Kennen and Aurora and Rumble and Jace. And those are not matchups where if you play well and they play well, you're still going to kill them. Same with Vladimir here. It's more about punishing his mistake. He didn't understand the decent cooldown of E versus W. He gave me a window to punish, and that's what I took. So this mindset shift helped me be way more consistent overall. Instead of forcing solo kills at the wrong time and getting punished, it's more so I know where the jungler is, I'm in a favorable position, no, you're playing the matchup wrong, I'm ready to punish. And for our final example, I have Olaf versus Gangplank. So this was a game where he didn't make a big obvious mistake and allow me to solo kill him, but he did make some small mistakes that allowed me to gain a lead. So my goal in this matchup, I must get priority and try to get an early reset off because Gangplank's going to poke me as I'm pushing him in, so a 3-wave crash would be great. But depending on how the lane goes, of course, for those of you who watch my wave control video, sometimes we have to adapt and do a 2-waver. I'm trying to bait him to use a double barrel here, but he's not really taking the bait. You can see I'm playing the barrel minigame here. And this is where I have to adapt for a wave 2 crash because I did a bit too much damage to the wave. But that's fine. Wave 2 crash, perfectly fine. So we just hit the wave, tank the double barrel. Versus Gangplank, it's okay to tank a double, but never a single. That's sort of a rule of thumb to follow. So you can see, 12 out of 12 CS. Hopefully if we get this one, I didn't speak too soon. 12 out of 12 CS. Go and check and ward the enemy golems here, just to see where he started. Now I know he's pathing down, so I'm free to play aggressive for the next couple of minutes here. So try to Q him in the wave same time. 2-wave crash and let the wave come in. Also really good in this matchup. So two options are, if he plays super respectful, 3-wave crash into cheetah, or you can 2-wave crash into let the wave come back in, conserving HP on the bounce back. So here, it's good to zone him off a 3 HP barrel there. So just trimming the wave a little bit, trimming the wave. Nothing special. And now because my jungler is pathing up and the wave's in a good position, he's guaranteed to get behind. This is something that is really hard for him to avoid. If I cleanly 2-wave crash and let the wave come back in and sort of zone him from the wave like this, with my jungler pathing up, of course, he is guaranteed to get some form of disadvantage. This is a very pre-planned, very calculated way to play the lane. You can see I'm 26 CS versus 19. Just playing it slow here, playing it slow, dodge the barrel. And just mainly playing for CSing. So I'm going to skim through this VOD quite quickly, just because it's a lot of this. Keeping my wave here, keeping my wave stuck here, trimming it a little bit, making it hard for him to approach the wave. You saw what happened when he tried to approach the wave. He wanted that cannon, so I'm going to punish you. If you want that cannon, I'm going to punish you for it, and dodging the barrel as well. So trim the wave, hold it steady, but now he's back with a Sheen. He base and TP back, he has a Sheen now, so he is stronger than me, so I need to find a timer to base. So I let the wave fully crash. I realize a lot of players try to block every single wave, or never block the wave. You can't do one or the other. You have to know when to block it, when not to, and the time where you can block it is if you have a notable power advantage over them, or jungle gap or something. But here I don't have either. He's stronger than me with the Sheen, so I'm going to push this wave out. Slow push this one, hard push this one, nuke it in as quickly as possible. So we nuke this wave, stop him from blocking the wave kind of, and then we base. Very, very consistent. Now we're 52 CS versus whatever he's got here, 35. Big advantage. Yes, I jungle on my side, but I use that. I know he's pathing up from the beginning of the game, so 2-wave crash, let the wave come back in. Makes it very, very hard for Gangplank to play him. And then because I just crashed that previous wave, another wave's coming back to me, so you know we're going to try to block this wave as well. So I pull the wave up here, block it, make him ulti the wave, which is very impactful, by the way. Sometimes it feels bad if he ults the wave and ruins your freeze, but that's an ulti he's not dumping on your bot lane's head. So it is actually very, very impactful. One shot the wave just so I can eat fruit. I want to be as healthy as possible. And now I'm just sort of pressuring him, pressuring him. So you see, I'm not just like doing nothing and farming. I've been pressuring this guy, running at him the whole time. But I haven't taken a single risk yet. If their jungler was here 24/7, I would not have been gankable a single moment. I've got my ward down, I'm full HP, I've got Ghost Flash. So it's a very consistent way to play the game here. So then I went to see if their jungler was at Golems. And go and proxy. Proxy high tempo recall. So I proxy that wave, come back for the plate. So I got the 2 plates. That was a bit greedy. Trying to get the second plate was very greedy. So you can see I'm still making mistakes, right? I'm not playing perfectly by any means. That second plate, like I wrote on my notes, you little tower plate addict, you're not allowed to go for those. 1 plate would have been enough. But you can see 91 CS to 63. We're in such a good position now without the nice dopamine of a solo kill. So pressuring him here, pressuring him here. It's poking him down because my Lee Sin's topside. And kill. And now his lane is completely cooked. You see proxy, kill the wave, proxy, get item, and then eventually I go for the kill, which is here. Because I've got Ravenous Hydra versus Sheen. I'm so much stronger than him. Don't worry, this doesn't look as bad. It's not as bad as this looks. We're chilling. Not even close. So that was a bit risky too. But you can kind of see here, 10 CS per minute. We didn't even like get a solo kill, but we were super impactful. We got plates, we pressured, we bled him out a bunch of XP and gold. So we got a really big advantage without our opponent making a super obvious mistake. He just was unfortunately on weak side, and taking first strike and stuff like that was greedy as well. He also could have played the 1-3 a bit more aggressive, made it harder for me to crash, but nothing too egregious like getting ran down and solo killed or anything like that. But our way of playing was super consistent, apart from the very end there, that dive, that never happened. We will take that away. Moving on to jungle tracking, and if you watch the laning phase section of this video, you'll know I rated jungle tracking very highly on my clan. I prioritize playing around and respecting the jungle on key timers, higher than solo killing, or higher than snowballing my lead, even if I was 2-0 and wanted to carry the game. Jungle tracking was always a really high priority for me in the early game. Now, in my opinion, the thing about jungle tracking is I feel like the title of it is very, very misleading. It's pretty rare, other than the first 3 minutes of the game, that I'm actually tracking where they are, and even then, a lot of time I don't even care exactly where they are. It's not like I'm like, hey, he's on Grump now, or he's on Golems, or at 45 seconds he'll be. It's not really like that. Jungle tracking is more just about knowing where they are not, right? And my number 1 rule for jungle tracking for that, if your team is doing anything bot side, killing the enemy bot lane, doing dragon, anything like that, and you don't see the enemy jungler involved, you just have to assume that he's top. Now, that doesn't mean I play safe every time my jungler's playing bot or anything like that. I have like wards and stuff like that that allow me to play more aggressive, but the general rule is if you don't see the enemy jungler bottom when your jungler's playing there, he is top. Because if he was bottom, he's probably not just going to sit there on his hands watching the enemy jungler, kill his bot lane and dragon and all that good stuff. And this applies to Scuttle Crab as well. That's very, very important. If your jungler does bot crab, the enemy jungler would rather lose his firstborn child than lose 2 crabs. So you just have to know he's on top crab for that reasoning. So that's a really important rule that I follow. Okay, we're doing dragon, we're killing bottom. Oh, the Kiana didn't pop the hidden. Okay, they're ganking top. Let me play around that. This is the number 1 rule that you can follow. So you don't have to track them on Grump and all that cringe stuff. Now, of course, there are things that I do know. Rek'Sai likes a 3-camp gank. Nunu's going to do the run-up, stuff like that. So I do play around that stuff as well. But to be honest, with the Fairy Lights, it's all pretty straightforward now. If you verse champions with big run-ups like Nunu and Willump, like Hecarim, you should just do a deep ward because the Fairy Lights only last 45 seconds. But a lot of it, to be honest, is being aware of what your teammates are doing and sort of having the mindset, that jungle tracking and playing around the jungle is more important than solo killing or trading or even getting perfect CS or anything like that. That has to be your important rule. Now, I don't want you to play super passive and never farm and never take kills, of course, just because you don't see them. So, of course, there is an element to tracking as well. But to be honest, if you have good vision and you're very aware of what your teammates in your jungler is playing for, you'll know where their jungler is most of the time. And I think a lot of people rely on actually seeing the jungler physically, but again, you just need to know where he's not. One more thing I want to touch on a bit more. When you have a lead, maintaining your lead is more important than forcing a bigger advantage. I think almost every student I have would rather throw their lead, trying to carry, than risk losing and not doing anything. Of course, I want you to do stuff with your lead. I don't want you to sit there doing nothing with your lead, but your priority, if you had to pick one, maintaining it is more important than growing it, because dying with a lead, especially to the jungler, is way worse for the game than going from 2-0 to 3-0 against the enemy Ornn or something like that. So you always have to prioritize maintaining your lead. So when I'm fed, it's more about perfect CS, go water the enemy jungle, think about where he is, think about where my jungler is, which will tell me where their jungler is, stuff like that. That's the most important thing you can do, is change your priorities. It's not as fun. It doesn't give as much dopamine, of course. Killing your opponent 7 times is the most fun thing of all time, making them leave the game, and you check their OPGG and they haven't played for 6 hours after versing you, and you know, yep, that's because of me. That's, of course, really fun, but it's not consistent. It's not consistent to climb with that in higher elo, so I recommend prioritizing jungle tracking as a way higher priority for you. And a lot of people I've found, they kind of understand what junglers want to do. Lilia wants to farm, Nunu wants to gank, you know, it's quite straightforward to think about it like that. So versus champions like Elise or Nunu, you want to think about jungle a bit more. Versus like Hecarim and Lilia, you think about it a bit less, but you still prioritize tracking them over, of course, the, you know, playing greedy for 1v1s. One thing as well, your back timer is your top priority. Your base time has to be the number one thing of all time. And this is something that I would say I do extremely well, is my back timer. And you need to think about not just can your opponent stop your back timer if you greed a wave or if you greed a plate, but can the jungler as well? If I hit this plate, can the jungler kill me or ruin my tempo? Or will it be close? If the answer is yes, you can't get that plate. It's not worth it. There's been times where I'd go for a play and the jungler can't kill me, but they chunk me and get my flash, and now my base is slow, and then the enemy top gets... It's terrible. Just base straight away. The back time has to be the top priority, and you need to think about not just enemy top laner, if he can TP back or run back and stop you, enemy jungle as well. Really, really important. And finally, a mindset shift I had is when my opponent was checkmated last season, especially if I'm in a hard matchup. If I'm Olaf versus Bessa or something, and I've outplayed them to, or like Jax especially, and I've outplayed them to the point where they're checkmated. What I mean by that is they're screwed. They're guaranteed behind, guaranteed to get dove by my jungler, solo killed by me eventually, bleed out 25. Checkmate scenario means that no matter how well they play it, they are screwed 1v1. If my opponent's in a checkmated scenario, the enemy jungler must bail him out. I always try to think about, okay, if I haven't seen him anywhere, he probably is. He's probably doesn't want his enemy top to get solo killed and me take 2 plates. But also, it's not really about that as well. It's if they see top. It's not like junglers care about top laner's well-being at all. He's not like, oh, I got your back, buddy. It's more like, okay, the enemy top is shitting on my top laner. He's probably going to play for a dive. I can counter gank that, and that'll be super impactful because not only will I get a kill, but it will bail my top laner out of that, you know, swing from being guaranteed behind to being guaranteed ahead. So it's a really impactful play for them. They don't actually care about us. They don't care about us. They just want to snowball and impact the game. So if you're in that position where your opponent's checkmated and they must get bailed out, you need to assume that they're there. You need to play the dive or play with whatever you're going to do, assuming that they're in the area. Get your ward down before the dive. Think about it, check the map, stuff like that, because a high-ranked jungler should be there. A high-ranked jungler, unless they're diving bottom or doing something more impactful, is not just going to sit on raptors and watch their top laner get obliterated. And you might be thinking, but my jungler does that to me all the time. But to be honest, I'd say in GM Chow games, the junglers are often right place, right time, or they're doing something equal or similar value on the other side. But you see that. You see the equal value thing they're doing on the other side, so you have to assume they're top if you don't see them doing that. Always play with that in mind. That is something that helped me a lot. Because last year, I just couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept that, okay, I've won this lane. He's completely out of the game. He's guaranteed to die if my jungler comes or if nothing happens. If I just do nothing, he might base or stuff like that. I couldn't really accept that reality that he might get away with it. But it's better to let him get away with it than to die to a gang. So there's a big change in gameplay I did. And of course, I'm not just going to base and let him base. I do my best to track jungle, but I keep my spells up. I keep healthy. I don't force a dive that I know, okay, if their jungler's in their bush, I'll die. I play it very patient because if the jungler comes top, wastes all their time floating, leeches his XP from the bush, and you don't overcommit and die, it's still really good for the game regardless. So here we have a couple of examples of myself jungle tracking from recent games following the rules that we talked about. So the number one rule, if our jungler is doing something bottom, eating crab, ganking bot, and their jungler doesn't pop their head in, they are top. So remembering that rule here. So right now on this timer, I really want to all in this Jax, but I'm very scared that Lee Sin could be in the area. So I'm playing it quite reserved, a bit more reserved than I normally would like to, considering how good I've done on the trades. We're not going to watch the lane, it doesn't matter, but he's a lethal tempo ignite Jax, so any kill here is super impactful. But if I go on him right now and Lee Sin flies out of that, flashes out of here, my Nexus will explode. I'll probably die, or worst case, I'll lose double sums, be low HP, be diveable in the next wave, all of that stuff we hate to face. So here, I'm just sort of chilling, waiting for my... There, I would have normally gone on that timer, by the way, that X, but I have to respect the Lee Sin. I have to. He could be anywhere. And then, boom, he shows himself counter ganking bottom. So I'm like, sweet, okay, on my next X, I can play the game. You see I'm warding top bush now, because I know he's not top lane. So now I can play the game, and you can see we eventually do go for this all in. So I was really careful here. Even though there was a timer to get a bunch of dopamine and solo kill this Jax, I was waiting patiently, waiting for the opportunity. I think a lot of people feel almost scared in a way where if I don't kill him right now, I'm not going to get that opportunity, and that will happen sometimes. But the alternative is dying to a gank and your Nexus exploding, or just you being an inconsistent player over a long, large sample size of games. So in my opinion, playing the way I did here is much more consistent than sending a crazy all-in when Lee Sin could be in that bush at any time. And for our next example, I'm going to showcase one of a matchup that feels very bad to respect jungle in, Jace versus Jax. For those of you who don't know, this is a matchup where if it's 1v1 custom game and Jace plays it to a really high level, he can blow up the Jax's tower. But unfortunately, it's not. My jungler has been splitting the map the whole game, and he's doing so again. He's invading red. And yeah, I could be like, no, this matchup, you need to play topside, I need to play for the plates, play aggressive air and die to Warwick. But it's all about making the most optimal play, and this is something a lot of people struggle with on lane bullies like Jace or like Kennen, or on snowball heavy champions like Kled or like Warwick. My champ needs to snowball. If I just respect jungle gap and don't snowball, how can I win games? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your champ wants to snowball. It doesn't matter if you're KO. It doesn't matter if you're Warwick. All you can do is the most optimal play. And here, because Warwick is in our top jungle, eating our 3 camps, all I can do is respect, stay as healthy as possible, and here I even blocked away from crashing just in case Warwick want to dive me, because they can dive me from full HP if I get chain CC'd. So I'm playing very respectful here, even though I know in another timeline, when my jungler is not splitting me off, I can blow up his tower. It's better just to play the reality, respect jungle, and you can see here, I start just sitting in the bush. You think I don't want that cannon minion with auto attacks? Of course I do. That's why I tried to get it, but I had to give it. So you can just see how respectful I'm being in the situation, because it's just not worth the alternative. It's way too risky. Even going to ward now, if Warwick's in that bush, I die. So I just let the CS drop, farm as best as I can. There he is, Warwick on Void Grubs, until I can play the game again. So main learning here, it doesn't matter what champ you're playing, how snowball reliant your champ is, how bad your team's playing, anything like that. All you can do is play to the best move around both junglers, play the reality of the game. That's going to be way more consistent overall. Yes, champs like Kled want to snowball more than champs like Kayle or Mbessa or something, but that doesn't matter. If you try to snowball and die to a gank every second game, it's not a consistent way of climbing anyway. So it's important to play the reality, and when you do get those opportunities to punish on your Jaces, on your snowball heavy champions like Kled or something, that you need to really make sure you take them. Next up, I'm going to be talking about having more impact in your games. This is a big thing that I worked on this season, so I'll be going through exactly how I adapted my gameplay to just have more impact overall. And this is something that's very important to everyone, but especially Master Plus top laners. I've noticed a common trend amongst Master Plus students where they feel like they're winning lane more often than they lose, but they're not winning all those games. Of course, just because you win lane doesn't mean you deserve to win the game. I know that goes against everything top laners believe in, and ideally if we won lane, the Nexus would explode straight away, especially if you want a counter matchup. But the reality is, just because you win lane 8 out of your 10 games doesn't mean you should be winning 70 or 80% of your games, because you're not being impactful enough if you're still losing. If you feel like it happens often that you win lane and the enemy bot lane carries, that is your fault. It's actually not your bot lane's fault. Surprisingly, it's easy to blame them because the enemy AD carries 12 kills, but you're not impactful enough. Top lane champions are the most impactful champs in the game, 1 to 2 items. If you're even or ahead, and you're a Triforce Jax, doesn't matter if the AD carry Israel has 7 kills or AD carry Jinx has 9 kills. You're still way more useful at that point. The time where you're not as impactful as mid AD carry champs is when they have 4 or 5 items, when they have IE Lord Doms, GA, and mid as Def Cap, Voice Self Zone. Of course, they're going to be more useful than us at that point. Of course, it depends on your champ. Gwen scales better than Aatrox. Of course, some champs are stronger 1 to 2, but on average, top lane champs are very powerful 1 to 2 items, so you need to be looking to use that strength. But we'll start from the beginning. One thing I changed is I prioritize impacting the map higher than individual advantages. So if I could, of course, if I could just dive my opponent, break 3 plates, I'm going to do that, but small advantages. I was always looking to attack jungle or attack mid, and little things like that make a massive difference in the game, even if you can't see it. Even one scenario where I remember recently I was playing up against Rookie. He was playing Ryze, and I ganked mid, and I didn't even kill him. He's Ryze, I'm Olaf, not going to kill that champ. I burnt his flash and chunked him. That had a really big change in the game. With the alternative in another another scenario, he might have got priority and gank bottom or something like that, or killed my mid with a gank or something. So even small things like that, even if they don't die, even if they don't lose flash, you just gank your mid and making them run away and get priority and letting your mid base, that can have a massive change in the game. And especially a impactful TP, a lot of these can matter a lot. So it's really important for you, especially with a lead. And this is one big thing that you can really apply to your gameplay regardless of what rank you're playing in. With a lead, it's way more important to attack the map. If you're 2-0, making the enemy top laner 0-3 is not as impactful as proxy attack jungle, proxy attack mid, really getting involved, even rocking up to a dragon and dropping a plate for that play, that's going to be way more impactful. So really important for you to work on making that mental switch. It should be a switch in your mind. Okay, my opponent's behind. Me especially blowing your ulti or your summoner spells to kill him is not worth it. I want to use all that power somewhere else on the map. And that's really impactful. Just playing for the 1v1 every game will only get you so far in solo queue. Unless you only play champs like Teemo or whatever. Champs that are built for the 1v1. You're not going to roam mid on Teemo, probably. I guess sometimes you can. But if you play those lane-only centric champions, that's what you should be doing. But if you play most other top laners, you should be looking to attack the map as much as you can. Now, we mentioned it before. Top laners are the strongest champs in the game during that 1 to 2 spike. So that's when you want to be being as impactful as possible. That's when you're Thanos compared to the rest of the champs. It actually doesn't matter if the AD carry has 9 kills. You are still going to be stronger than him, and if you can TP there and turn that before he gets to 3-4 items, that's when it's a game changer. Especially this season, so good for top. My bot lane can be 0-5, I'm still up 2 levels over enemy AD carry, so if I can make a good team fight or a TP play before it gets out of hand, and that's what a lot of players struggle with. All they tunnel is the last fight where the 4-item Aphelios one-shot them all. But there are so many missed opportunities where you probably burned your ulti flash to kill enemy top, and you could have used that bottom, or you TP top and killed them, blow up the tower, but maybe the enemy bot lane was hitting your bot tier 1 and you could have TP killed them. There are so many opportunities that if you look for them, they are going to be really impactful for the game. Now, of course, that relies on you having a good baseline. So bringing it back to champ pool and the laning phase thing I worked on, which is why I covered those things first. If you're really good at your champion, and you do well in your lane most of the time, you're going to put yourself in positions to impact the game. If you died to 2 ganks and got solo killed and you're 0-3, you're not going to be impactful. You're not going to be able, sometimes you still can, but you're going to have less opportunities. You're going to have far less opportunities compared to if you're 0-0 with good farm. I promise you that. So even though sometimes when you're behind, you can make plays in the game, being even or ahead gives you way more opportunities. So this is one of the most impactful changes you can make. If you feel like you already do well in your lane, you already feel confident in your lane phase, especially for a Master Plus player, then start looking for opportunities that you're missing to attack the rest of the map, especially in games where you have a lead. And one final part, there's a hard part of the skill, because impacting the game is not as easy as just, okay, I want to attack mid or attack jungle, and it's going to work out perfectly every time. Even TPing bottom is hard. Knowing when to TP and when you can't. Knowing what's a good TP or not, that's a hard skill as well. So this is the hard thing to work on. This is the skill that you need to practice. You're not going to go into your next game being like, okay, I'm going to be more impactful and be a master at it straight away. It took me quite a few games to learn when I could do those roams and when they were worth what I would lose, or the TPs and stuff like that. So the important thing to do is not feel like, okay, I'm going to impact and roam every time. Some games you might not be able to roam. It's more about looking for those opportunities, panning your camera, thinking about it, going if it looks good. If it looks good, we go. If the bot TP looks good, I'll TP. It's not about, I'm fed, I want to TP bottom. It might not be possible. You might have an Ezreal Yumi, and the enemy might be Draven Poppy with their flashes up, and you don't have a good flank ward. You can't TP just because you want to. It has to look good. Yes, you can ping for it and look for it and be trying to play for it, but it's not going to be possible every single game. So the skill to learn is step 1, trying to be more impactful, looking for these plays, and step 2 is trying to develop what looks good and what doesn't look good. If you look at a play like a gank mid, that's an easy example, and think, this looks good, I'm going, and it goes badly, that's going to be like a slap in the face. Like, oh shit, okay, I thought it looked good. Let me review it. Because a lot of people fall into the trap of, I'll give an example from students where I'm just going to split push more. Grouping didn't work. Or I'm just going to group more. Split pushing didn't work. That's too general. Being impactful and knowing when to roam is not general. It's very specific. It'll look good for various reasons. It'll look bad for various reasons. And that's up to you to develop and figure out. But step 1 is looking at it, thinking along those lines. Does this look good? Yes, I'm going. Review. Does this look bad? No, I'm not going. review as well. Maybe it did look good and you didn't see it in the game for, maybe you didn't see your mid pinked as flash or whatever, right? But especially the plays that you make that go badly. I don't really review, to be honest, that often the plays that I don't go to. I'm pretty confident in it though. You definitely can. I mainly review the plays that I commit and they were bad. I think, why? Why did I look at this and still go? What was the variable that I missed? And it's like, I sort of hoped that he didn't have flash. There'll always be an answer to that question you ask yourself. So definitely this is the way to develop the skill and the way to increase your impact overall on the game, instead of just thinking, I'm top lane, I can't do anything for 15 minutes until lane's done. That's not the case. There's most games that you play, there are going to be a couple of opportunities, as long as you're looking for them and you're in a good position to capitalize on them. So now I'm going to showcase exactly what I mean by increase your impact in the game. My two biggest learning objectives: stabilize my early game, make it super consistent, and spreading my power or impacting the game in some way. So here we can see up against Volibear, super consistent early games. We're not going to focus on the laning that much, more so about spreading that power. So clean 3-wave crash into Cheetah, 18 out of 19 farm, and then we kill him on this situation here. We get an outplay onto him. So now I have a lead, but I'm not in a situation where I can attack jungle or attack mid, of course. My mana is so low, so it's better for me to trim the wave, let it come back to me, base and come back. So farm the wave, and then I go for a kill at level 6, right? So just winning my lane, punishing his mistake when he overextended level 4, and then abusing my level 6 first 5. So classic top lane stuff. Now, this is where I made the big switch in my mind. Now I want to spread my power on the map. I don't care about this 26 CS Volibear anymore. I don't want to use ulti. I don't want to use ghost or flash to kill this guy. I want to use all my strength, all my power to attack the map. Because right now my bot's losing, my mid's losing. Only me and jungle are doing well. And jungle is just even. So it's really important that I impact the map in some way. So now I have to respect when my ulti's down, of course. Slow push this one. Hard push this wave. Or is it hard push this one? Plate and move first for grubs. So there's no grub opportunity to fight. So back to top. There's no way it's going to be super quick. In fact, I find it harder to spread your power around the map super early. So this is where I start to do it, around 9 minutes. Before, I didn't really have a good opportunity to do so. But now I come back, one-shot the wave, proxy, and look mid. So right now, Irelia, melee versus melee matchup. She has to walk up to farm. So if I look for an opportunity here, either she gives the wave, gives Zed priority, doesn't solo kill him again, lets him push her in under tower, or she plays the game, and I get an opportunity. No Irelia, no Silas, no Akali mid player wants to sit back and do nothing. Yes, sometimes they will respect you, but that's also good for the game. So here, just beat her up, and kill this Irelia, base straight back to top. So we've already impacted mid, which was the worst player on our team. We stopped the Irelia snowballing straight away. So here, normally I don't want to kill this guy, but he just sort of walked up. So of course I'm going to kill him, right? Just because I want to spread my lead around the map doesn't mean I'm not going to take an obvious kill, but I'm not going to waste any subs. Let's say he flashed away, right? Let's imagine he flashed away him, and I had to flash follow him to kill him. I wouldn't. I'd rather him live on 1 HP than flash here. So I want to use my flash elsewhere on the map. So one shot the wave, looking bottom. You see this whole time, as soon as I unlock my first TP, looking bot, always looking bot, proxy here, and then boom, they start ganking bottom with Irelia and Talia. So I TP in with this first TP, kill Talia, kill Irelia, get Jenna kill, and now we're in a really good position. You can see compared to before I spread that lead. Look how nice the game state looks now. Imagine I just killed this Volibear 5 times, or I was poking him under tower and just killed him once, and I didn't attack mid, and I didn't attack bottom. Not only does this increase the in-game value significantly, look at what's happening mid right now, but it also puts a lot of pressure on your opponents mentally. League is a mental game. I'd say half of League is mental, and if the top lane is running around ganking mid, TPing bottom, and completely outperforming, it is way harder to play against than the top that just kills the Volibear over and over again. And here I have another example of impacting the map in a different way. Now the 3 main ways to get specific on it to impact the map, increase your impact overall, is to gank mid, TP bottom, or attack jungle. Attack jungle or moving to a skirmish first, stuff like that. That is the third and final way. So here you can see, even though I have a wave coming towards me, I know this is a favorable fight based on our champions, so I move here straight away. So pop the ghost, run in here, I ditch an entire cannon wave for this player. This is so much more impactful than two plates in the wave or one plate in two waves. Whatever Lee Sin would have lost here, the Lee Sin top. This is the game-winning play of this game. Look back here, it's 1-2. It's a pretty even game. That Hecarim's the rank 1 Hecarim on Korea server, the guy that's Chell 2000 LP every season, if you guys know him. There's a good chance he carries the game if I don't move him and shut him down early. So this is definitely a great example of situations where I would probably be selfish and different, like last season or something like that. But my impact in the game is so much higher now, making sure I move to these skirmishes. Now that doesn't mean to move to every single skirmish that you see. You have to know that it's favorable. But if there's a good chance you win it and you commit, it is worth taking the small individual loss for to have a bigger impact in the game overall. Because this was the game-winning play, and it's really hard for them to bounce back from this. Moving on to our next topic, which I'm just going to call Challenger Fundamentals because it's such a cool name and it kind of describes what I'm talking about. So what I mean by this is there are skills or fundamentals in League which are very important for Challenger players or players climbing through GM Challenger that aren't as important for the rest of the player base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by showcasing some normal fundamentals. So this is just from a tier list that me and Alois did recently. Hopefully the people watching, they know it's a general list. So you might already be good at level up timers, so it's not going to be a top priority for you. So it's just important for you to think about where you're lacking, and then if there's 2 or 3 things that come up, you can check this tier list and kind of prioritize it that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great touch, because what I would do right now, if I'm in your shoes right now, is basically make this a checklist. So you're like, okay, all right, I want to start learning to play top lane better. I'm gonna lock in my champion mastery, again, 1 to 3 champions. I'm gonna work on trading and CSing pretty much at the same time as in terms of importance. And then, all right, how do I start improving from this point onwards? Okay, I gotta work on my base timers, my level up timers, the way I control my moves. Of course, these are very broad concepts that you have to start utilizing and start applying into your gameplays. But again, I would literally look at it through the lens of this top 3 most important, and then you go down the list in terms of the content that you start working on, and then you'll be a complete top laner.
So I'm not going to list all of them here. It'll take up too much of the screen. I'm just going to show the top 3 ranks. So the S, the A, the B tier. And I'm going to highlight the ones that I was very good at. I was good at pretty much all of these. Of course, if you're playing in Challenger for a long time, it's kind of a given that you're good at trading and back timers and level ups and all that good stuff, right? These are the basics of the game. Now, the game's not weighted equally for everyone. Of course, for a top lane point of view, somebody that's a Ornn one trick is not as good at side laning as a Fiora one trick, right? League's not the exact same for all players, but most players in Challenger are good at pretty much all of these. So now I'm going to highlight the ones that I needed to work on for this Challenger climb. The ones where I was lacking. Now, I didn't go into it with this list or anything. I'm just doing it for a visual aid for you guys. But Champion Mastery. Because I played Pro for so long, and I played in 10 seasons or 8 seasons of different metas, I had to learn Renekton, everything. Jarvan meta was at the top at some point, cleared, everything. My Champ Mastery wasn't as good as people who have just been playing solo queue that whole time, or people that have been one-tricking the champion for longer than me. So my Champion Mastery was lacking in terms of that 1%er. I probably had more champions that are an A tier for me than most players, but less champions that are just my S, my go-to, my fallback on. My main champs weren't at that level. Now, mental fortitude as well. I wouldn't say I tilted or typed that much or anything like that, but putting how you fit in every game despite being behind, that was something I struggled with, especially playing from behind. And in my opinion, playing from behind and mental fortitude is the same thing, because if you're playing from behind, you have no options. You have very few options, so mental fortitude is kind of part of that. Or the situation where, like, I know my jungler is top, but I play disrespectful anyway, stuff like that. So mental fortitude, and we'll talk more about mental in the section of this video. Now, matchup knowledge. So it's pretty much the same thing as Champ Mastery, kind of similar. So I worked on that, and playing to win conditions. So these were the 4 that I indirectly worked on during this climb. So I'll go through how. So for Champ Mastery, I shrunk my pool at the start of the climb, and then I shrunk my pool even more so in. So we talked about this in Champion pool. I became an Olaf main, playing Olaf 9 or 8 out of 10 games. So I really built my Champ Mastery on him, and pretty much every VOD I watched was of Olaf or of pro players like Zeus or Keen versing Olaf. So that was mainly what I watched. And that built up my matchup knowledge as well. I had a Google Doc, a folder on my Chrome with like 4 or 5 Olaf one tricks who were in Chell or Chell last season, and I watched a lot of their matchups, even if they played a bit worse than me. Even if I found I was better at Olaf than them, I didn't ego it. I just watched it and see the little things they did differently to me, and that built up my matchup knowledge, especially in the more common hard matchups like Rumble and stuff like that. That definitely helped a lot. Now, playing to win conditions. So last season, this is something I definitely reflecting on my gameplay last season, I wasn't really that good at. And I'll chalk it down to, this could be a cop-out, but a lot of seasons playing in OC or NNA, where you being the win condition is sort of the most consistent strategy. You carrying games is like the main formula. But in Korea, it's not really going to be like that every time. If I play Olaf versus a GM or Chal Rumble, me killing him 3 times and being the win conditions not a consistent strategy. So playing to the win conditions of my team was very, very important. So playing different the way I would with an Ori compared to a TF, using the TF inside a bit more, or a Pike versus an Alistair. Yes, I know the game's so easy if you have that Alistair, if you have that Rel, but you have to play to the win conditions of what you've given. So that's something that I worked on, just going into the thinking in the game more actively. Okay, we're playing with these champions. Okay, we have Nocturne, have to play around his ulti, stuff like that. That definitely helped a lot. Now I'm going to showcase some challenger fundamentals. I'm just going to showcase the top 5. So these are skills that I don't feel like you need to work on that much in lower ranks. So say the first one, having consistent performances. I actually think for a silver player, this isn't that good. The reason why is there are so many mistakes your opponent is making. So unless your consistent performance is going 10-0 every game, which is unrealistic, it's not worth it. You need to push yourself. If you're in silver, if you're in bronze, if you're in gold or plat even, you're probably not punishing your opponent as much as you could be. So you need to push yourself. You need to be willing to make mistakes and get solo killed more, and to learn how to actually punish the mistakes and carry. So I feel like this is not a good thing for a bronze player to be good at. If you're going 0-0 or 1-0 or 0-1, and most of your games are bronze, silver, gold, you're not playing correctly because your opponent's making so many mistakes. You should be exploiting them or messing up and getting exploded. So that's why I feel like this is more of a challenger fundamental. But this is something I had to work on, having consistent performances. And I talked about this a lot already, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. But this was something that really, really was a big game changer for me in terms of winning more often. Now, impacting the map. Another thing I worked on, again, it kind of comes back to playing to win conditions. If you're in a matchup where you cannot progress anymore, like a Gragas or like a good Rumble player or an Abyssa, you're not going to kill them 5 times and blow up the tower and end the game. Unless they off-roll, unless they mess up, unless they troll, impacting the map is going to be the main way you spread your power or your small advantage and impact the game a bit more. And especially in games where I'm ahead, like a 2-0 lead, this was something that really helped me in be more effective, because even something small like Genki mid burning his flash in another timeline, that can change the game. That can mean your mid gets pushed, now your mid gets first move, now they win the bot 3v3 instead of the reverse where you didn't do anything, the enemy mid pushes in mid and kills your bot lane. So it's really impactful, even if you don't really see if it's not the dopamine, the instant reward of a rogue kill, sometimes just you proxying and walking towards mid and then running away, that can have big impacts on the game as well, especially at the top level. But again, in bronze, impacting the maps is not as important because, like, at the end of the day, getting your bronze mid or your bronze jungle fed or your gold mid or gold jungle is not as important as just obliterating your lane and blowing up the tower. That's sort of the more consistent strategy there. So if we go back to the other fundamentals, if you're in lower ranks, mainly focus on these. The ones that Lois and I put in order. If you're struggling at CSing, get better at that. If you're struggling at base times, work on that. So these are way more important for you. But for higher rank players, Master Plus, these ones I'm going to talk about now are really important. Now, communicating / driving the bus. So driving the bus, what I mean by that is you're making the calls. No, we're not fighting this dragon. Give dragon, dive top. Making calls. And I think 9 out of 10 Master students I watch do not drive the bus. They just go with the natural flow of the game. Their team wants to fight dragon, okay. Or even if they don't want to fight dragon, all right, you guys can fight it. Let's see what happens. It's just so lazy. You gotta drive the bus. You gotta be more involved. And again, not every type of champ needs a skill set. Some people can just blast their way to Chow with Riven or something like that. But I found this was something that was super impactful. Like, we're fighting this Baron. I'm there, like getting to Baron early, getting my team involved with strong pings. Really, really important. So the reason I have this different as communication is just driving the bus is not just communicating. Communicating is like tops missing, or top missing or top no flash or something. Driving the bus is we're giving this dragon, we're diving top, or Baron's up in 30 seconds, I'm there, all in, let's get vision, make them fight us. That's more so driving the bus. That's something that I got very good at. Now, reading the map. So I'm actually going to say reading the map is different to map awareness. Map awareness is being aware of what's going on. Reading the map is knowing what's going to happen. So what this means is you can kind of tell if they're giving dragon and trying to kill you top by just being good at reading the map. This is a skill that's really important to develop, and to be honest, is already pretty good, this one. I'm just going to have it on here just for something that you guys can work on. And the way I got good on it was playing pro for a long time, of course, and you really spend a lot of time reviewing, watching pro games and stuff like that. That definitely helped. But for solo queue, it's just more about guessing what their best move is. A lot of students I found are kind of optimistic, like, they shouldn't be here. I thought he'd be on Herald, and then they end up getting Dove. But you have to read what their best move is. Read the map in Master Plus games, GM games, with a pessimistic mindset towards yourself. Like, okay, they should be giving Dragon and diving me here because I lose the Dragon fight. Or, okay, he could be doing my jungler's red buff, so I can trade right now, but he could be in this bush and he could kill me if I go, so I'm going to respect. It's more about that. Or I didn't see bot lane go back to bot. He could be diving top. Let me go ward instead of chunk my opponent. You know, being more pessimistic about their options, assuming that they're going to make the best play, what they should do in that situation. And now the final one, and this one I'm going to show some examples of. Choosing good fights. So a lot of people ask, when should I group? When should I split push? Or I keep losing every time I fight, I'm going to split push more. Stuff like that. Or I don't want to roam, I lose too much top. But all of that is solved by knowing what a good fight looks like. Knowing how to choose a good fight. So I'm really going to break down some examples of this. But what this means is you look at a situation and you know if it's going to be good if you TP. Or know if it's going to be good if you go there, and you know if it's going to be bad or not. And that's really important, because if a fight looks bad, and you don't get sucked into it, or you backping your team, that can have a massive benefit of the game. Because let's say every single league game you play has 30 fights, right? Let's just say 30. In a game that's winning, 20 of them might be good fights and 10 of them might be trash. In a game that's losing, or a really hard game, there might only be 3 or 4 good fights and 25, 26 terrible ones. So you can kind of see the pattern here. Knowing what's a good fight, knowing what's a bad fight. If somebody was perfect at that skill, they would be an amazing player. And this is a skill that I really worked hard on, especially for my champion. This was a really important skill for Olaf, because if you choose a bad fight, not only will you maybe die or lose CS, like every champ, but you lose summoner spells. And Olaf without spells is a shit stain. So it's really important that I chose good fights, compared to if I played Cassante and I picked a bad fight and I lost my flash. Does it really matter? Yes, a little bit, but nowhere near as much as different champions. So choosing good fights, really, really important, and more so on champions that are more sum reliant or more snowball heavy. Like if you pick a bad fight on Renekton and throw while you're at your strongest, that could be really bad for the game as well. And of course, Renekton, very flash reliant too. So choosing good fights. So what that means is you look at the fight as you're walking there, and you can read by, you know, how strong everyone is, what the fight looks like, if it's going to be good if you commit or you TP. If it looks good, you go there. If it looks bad, you back ping it, try to get your team away from it, and go back to side and min-max your farm, and then you look for the future opportunity where that play looks good. So the reason why I've made this section here is just there are different skills that are more important for different ranked players. So this is sort of an easy way to visualize what you could be working on in higher ranks, no matter what, even if you're in GM. If your base time is a trash, you need to work on that. Of course, the regular fundamentals are important for everyone, but this is just sort of assuming that if you're climbing through GM or Chell, you're already good at most of, if not all of these top important skills. Of course, no one's perfect at all of them, but they should be to a high enough level that it's not a consistent problem for you, and then you can work at the more difficult, more consistent things for high rank climbing, like driving the bus, like impacting the map with your moves, reading if the play looked really good. These are harder skills to work on than base timers, but definitely important for a high rank player. So here are some examples of committing to good fights, and I'm going to break down my reasoning in detail behind it. What makes a fight look good before committing. And this is definitely one of the most impactful macro concepts, if you want to call it that, for a high elo solo queue player, knowing what plays look good and what look bad from just a glance within a couple of seconds. Now, to get to that point, of course, you need to get a lot of reps in actually thinking about it. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, when I see a fight happening from a student's point of view, they're just going no matter what, or just not going at all. But the formula I like to teach, you start moving, you move your camera, you commit if it looks good. So here you can see I'm walking, I move my camera, and if this looked bad, if this looked terrible, I'd go straight back to top. Now, I really like this example because this is a bad time for me to move. My wave is like this, so I know that if I move, I'm guaranteed to lose stuff. That is a guarantee individually. So this play has to be winning. Imagine I go to a losing play here with my wave frozen like that. That's Nexus exploded. But here I know this is going to be good already from this freeze frame. And the reason why, so the most important things to keep in mind are numbers advantages and champion spikes. So item spikes or power spikes in that point in the game. So an item spike is quite obvious, like Triforce on Camille or something, and a power spike is, you know, maybe a level 6 champion that has a good ulti, like a Malphite or something, and in this situation, level 5 versus 5, Viego is just way more useful than Hecarim. Hecarim is very useless early game. Phase Rush Hecarim, 1 to 5, is a useless champion. And here, numbers advantage. Our Rakan is here before the Thresh. And the other variable here, me versus this Lee Sin. I am way more useful than this Lee Sin. So I'm the missing piece of the puzzle here. So coming here in this fight, I am the reason why we are stronger. So if I commit here, it's probably going to be favorable. Now, that doesn't mean every fight that looks good is going to be a win. Keep that in mind as well. Just because you join a fight that looks good and you lost doesn't mean it was a bad fight. Sometimes people might play it terribly. Sometimes you might play it badly. It's important to watch it through 2 points of view. You watch the fight itself, how you could have executed better, and then you watch, was this actually a good fight to begin with? In fact, if I think more about it, I'd say going back to before the fight began is the most important part, especially for a high ranked player, because if you're playing a Master Plus, your team fighting's probably pretty solid if you're playing your main champions. But this is a skill that's not that common, knowing what fight's good and what fight's bad. So if you go back before the fight began and analyze, okay, this looks bad for these reasons, and in this situation this looks good because Thresh is further away than Rakan, so we have a temporary numbers advantage. Even though Lee Sin kind of balances it out, Viego and me, we are way stronger than their top jungle. Mid, let's call it even. Let's call it even here. The Cassiopeia and Ryze are both like 1 HP, 1 mana. So it's pretty much me and Viego are the gap here. That's the reason why this is winning. And of course, Rakan being here slightly earlier than Thresh was a massive deal as well. Now, our next example here is a very, very good one to showcase that a fight can look good and look bad depending on what's happening. So what I mean by that is you have to be flexible. There's going to be plenty of fights that initially look good, but someone on your team does something very stupid, and now it doesn't look good anymore. That's very common. The reverse is also true. A play could look bad, and then someone on their team might int. They might fail their combo. They might miss their ulti. They might get caught by something. So it's really important that you're flexible. So here, I'm a 2-item spike Olaf, juiced out of my mind on the juice here. This is a really good looking Baron fight. If we all get here early and get vision, we dominate them in this Baron 5v5. But my bot lane had another plan in mind. They thought getting caught on mid lane was more impactful. So now, boom, fight looks bad. Imagine I committed to this fight. I guarantee you, if I committed to this fight, we lose the game. And I'm 100% certain about that. I'll lose my Psalms, I'll probably die, and we'll lose Baron, and the game will be over. But because I'm ready to read, looks bad now, I'm going. It's really important that you're not attached, like we must fight this is our only opportunity. You need to stay flexible, and I'll showcase you why on this example. So here, looks good, looks like crap, leave. You can see just leaving straight away. Maybe could have left a second earlier or whatever, but I didn't get sucked into it. I didn't even take a point of damage. I'm not willing to fight now, but you'll see what happens now. So right now the fight looks bad, but look what they do. They're doing Baron super early in the game when they don't really have good Baron DPS, and they used a bunch of spells on my team. So now the fight actually looks good, because they wasted a bunch of important cooldowns on my bot lane, and they're tanking the Baron. So the fight went from looking good to bad to good again. And I don't want to overcomplicate it, it's not always this advanced, but this is definitely a cool example of how you can really min-max the skill. So here you can see, go on the, see Viego didn't have ulti. Even one little thing like Viego having ulti here, or he's dead, he resets, we lose the fight. Because I saw before he wasted a bunch of spells on my bot lane, this is a winning fight for the boys here. And we kill them all, me and my Echo, and we get Baron, and now we get to win the game, not them. So if we go back and we analyze a bit more, I mean, this one's pretty straightforward. It looks bad because my bot lane got killed instantly without really doing anything. And then it looked good because they were tanking Baron without their major abilities. So you don't always have to overcomplicate it. And there definitely will be some where it's like, oh, we win now because their AD carries 200 gold off, i.e. he doesn't have it yet, or his flash is up in 20. You know, there definitely will be more min-maxi, looks good, looks bad players. But in my experience, those aren't the most important in terms of being a more consistent player over hundreds and hundreds of games. It's just being able to read of the big things like numbers advantages, major cooldowns, who's stronger, that type of thing. Those are the big three to keep in mind. And here, because their major cooldowns were down and their HP bars were a bit low as well, we had a favorable fight here. And there's also one more in this game, which was around here. So this fight. Why does this fight look good? So I want to go top, push in the wave, TP if it looks good. That's the best way to use TP as well. TP if the play looks good. So if you combine this concept with teleport, you're going to be very consistent. So why does this look good? Even though this fight is probably my Varus getting one shot. There's a good chance he just dies. They're overextended here. And Varus is not the main character on our team. In fact, he's the least useful teammate of all 5 people. So him dying isn't really a factor. Now, he managed to live, I think, but it doesn't really matter. Nope, there he goes. That doesn't matter. They're overextending for him. It's going to take them time to kill him. Even if he didn't do a bit of damage on his way down, this is a good-looking fight because they're overcommitting with me having a ward, or a minion in this case, behind them. So we're in a really good spot. Alistair even gave me a little bump there. A nice guy. And we kill their team again. So you can kind of see here the difference. even though this fight started with my Varus getting caught, they were super overextended and blew a lot of major cooldowns on him. So even though they had a numbers advantage over me, I'm pretty much built the same as 3 men at this point, so it doesn't matter. But the main thing is they're out of position with a lot of major abilities down. That's why this fight looks good before I press that teleport button. And for our last example, I wanted to showcase a pretty long sequence and just breaking down exactly what I'm thinking in the game throughout it. So here, I want to play for Baron. You saw my ping right there. I've got TP in 20, so I'm confident I don't need to go to Baron right now. There's a low chance a big fight happens in the next 20 seconds. So I go bottom, push in the wave, and start walking to Baron. Because being there is still more important or more impactful than TPing them, because you're there before the fight really begins. I'm not going to split push bottom. I don't need this TP. So me being there is good. And you can see I'm hovering mid to try and make a pick on their AD carry. But right now my Leona needs a base. So initially I wanted to rock up to Baron, get ready to fight, but my Leona had to recall for wards. So I go back to bottom for one more wave. Now I want to group again. My jungle wants to recall for some trash item probably. And this is solo queue. In competitive, everyone sort of bases at the same time, but you can see everyone's very staggered, and that's normal. You have to adapt to the chaos of solo queue. So because Viego based, one more wave, and now I want to commit and play for this fight. Now this is where I TP really shortly because the play looks good. The fight looks good because we got a good engage. And that's a really important one. If you see the fight start off looking good like this, TP straight away. Look how fast I TP'd him, because the start of this fight looks good. We got a full combo onto Lee Sin with Viego charging W from the bush. So there's a good chance that he either gets one shot or chunked to 1 HP and flashes away or whatever. So this is a really, really good looking start to this fight. But you can see the past minute or so, I was looking for this the whole time. It wasn't just like I panned my camera and TP'd randomly. I was always ready for this opportunity to arise. And maybe if the opposite happened, let's say Viego walked in there, got hooked from the bush and got one shot, I wouldn't TP because it would look bad. It's all about the play looking good. So I TP in, TP in, and keep in mind this game is a massive AD carry gap. The Yuntara is everything. So we, good job Ori. So we got to show her how it's done. Boom, boom, boom. Beat her head off. And this was the game-winning fight here. So the thing I liked about this example is I didn't just TP straight away or commit straight away. It took me 2 or 3 waves for a good-looking opportunity to come up. But I only committed, I only TP'd, or in another game, rocked up to the Baron when the situation looked favorable for our team. Alright, next up we're going to be covering mindset and tilt, how to deal with tilt on your climb. And this is something literally every player deals with, so I've called in a specialist, Coach Curtis, to join me for today.
Thanks for having me on today, Chippies. I've got my therapist cap on ready, my armchair analyst mindset. We'll get into the details.
Let's do it. So pretty much one big thing that everyone needs to keep in mind is toxic narratives. And this is something you talk a lot about on the podcast, which is kind of a self-sabotaging thought that's holding you back. And I had my own ones for this climb, of course. So I just want to use them as kind of examples. But it's really important that everyone goes through your own, because you're going to care more about different things than I do, especially if you play different roles or anything like that. So for my first one, and I think all top laners feel this, I played my lane so well, but I couldn't carry due to jungle gap. This is probably one of the most frustrating things for a top laner, especially if you're in a counter matchup, like if you're Jax versus Kennen and you're winning the 1v1, and you just get camped on repeat, die a few times, and now you don't get to carry the game. And this was something that I really, really struggled to accept. So is this something that you've dealt with a bit in mid lane, or is it a little bit different?
Yeah, I would say I mean, look, okay, so in mid laners, you know, as a mid laner, you can get camped, right? You can get camped from support roams and jungle ganks and top roams, whatever. I mean, the amount of like Camille's roaming mid and ultimate or whatever, it's annoying. I want to preface my answer here by just talking about just high level, like a lot of people who struggle with tilt, and we all struggle with tilt. There's no such thing as no one's a mental monk, right? If you have emotions and you're getting tilted, it shows you care. Okay. So I don't want anyone feeling guilty. I don't want anyone to feel like, they're going to ascend and get to a point where they're never going to feel frustrated anymore. That's not reality, right? We're competitors. We want to win. You're watching this video because you want to get better, get to challenger or whatever. So that's that. Now, I guess for me, what tilt does is it gets in the way of viewing objective reality, right? The objective reality in that game that you just said, where you're playing Jackson to Cannon, you're playing weak side, you're soaking up all this pressure, is that you might be playing great League of Legends. And if you were to perform at that level of play over the course of 5, 10, 15 games, you're going to win more than you lose. So objectively, if we were to just put aside all the emotion, you're actually doing a really good job. You're still going to win. And that's where you're still going to climb, sorry. And that's where that kind of long-term view, that viewing solitude like a marathon over a sprint really comes into play. And as you get more familiar or more, let's say you develop more emotional regulation, you become more aware that you're frustrated and you start to contextualize what's actually going on, you'll start to realize, you know what? I am pretty proud of how I played this game. This was a really, really hard game. I made this guy sweat in lane. I solo killed this guy on weak side. But you know what? My bot lane had a counter pick. They still lost. You know, my mid jungle had the favorable mid jungle. They lost. But you know what? I can look myself in the mirror and know I played a pretty good game of League of Legends. So my point here that I'm trying to say is that you don't need to be able to be that massive carry in every single game, especially in Master Plus and Chippies. You talk a lot about, you know, maybe in the lower elo brackets, you maybe have to be that carry, but in the higher elo brackets, that's not really what top lane is about, is it? Not every single game anyway.
Yeah, exactly right. If you're playing in silver or bronze or gold, you need to be pushing yourself. You need to be actively carrying or even actively inting sometimes to develop that skill. But in Master Plus, especially when you get to GM Chell, if I'm versing some T1 Academy player, 15-year-old prodigy, and he's playing Rumble, my goal is not to solo. My job in the game is not to solo kill him 3 times, blow up his tower. That's just not realistic, especially if you're playing champs that might not do well into them. So even the biggest mindset shift I had, which I talk a lot about in this video, is just if you can get even farm consistently, high CS, tracking jungle perfectly, and never really giving anything up, like you said before about a marathon, across 100 games of you doing that, of almost never being the lose condition, you're going to do a lot better than, nice, I smashed in one game, and then the other 3 games I fed to ganks because I was trying too hard to smash him. So it's more about having a consistent mindset about your overall gameplay, not winning every single game you play.
Yeah, and I'll say the last thing on that. You know, I think the more you understand the game, right? Like you now, Chippies, I'm assuming if you're in a game like that where you know that you played well on weak side, even though you'll get frustrated, because you have more context on that situation, you can look yourself in the mirror after the game and be like, you know what? I know that if I play like this in the wide variety of games, I'm gonna win more than I lose, you know, and that is gonna be the thing that breaks through the tilt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly right. And even focusing more on what you could have done better, even if you played in general really well, there might have been 1 or 2 bad trades where if I didn't take that trade, maybe I could have got more CS, stuff like that. Even trying to catch on to that as well. So another thing, and this one, it still kind of haunts me at times. I think it haunts a bit of everyone, but playing with champions that are useless. Because of course there are S tier, A tier champs, but if you get champions like a Graves or like a Jhin or a Sinner, these god-awful champions, especially when people don't overperform on them, it feels so much harder than the games when you have like a Vi, Jarvan, Rel, these very useful champs. And I like to call them high variance champs, where a champion like Graves, they have to play so much better than the enemy jungler to be borderline useful. And that makes your agency in the game lower. So how do you kind of come to terms with that? Just your champion's champ selectability lowers your agency in the game.
Yeah, I think like you correctly said, you know, meta matters a lot in Master Plus, especially, right? And I would say this applies to all elo brackets. If you're watching this in gold, there are going to be, why is there an Azir in my game? You know, in gold, why is someone trying to play like Caitlyn Draven top in my game in silver? It's not going to work, mate. Like just play a simple champion. Yeah. So it's important that to realize it happens in all ranks. But I would say here that, yes, I struggle with this as well. This is a fundamentally frustrating thing. And for me, like the way I tackle it is I have my toolkit, and my toolkit is making the enemy sweat for LP. So if I look at the draft and my bot lane's got some weird shit going on, my top lane is trying to be a clown in top lane, and I'm like, mate, why, the comp has no win condition. My mind automatically needs to latch onto something. I need to give my mind something to kind of give it clear intention and direction. Right, and distract my mind, because if I don't distract my mind, I'm going to lose my marbles. I'm gonna rage. I'm gonna lose focus. I'm gonna tilt. Right. So my toolkit is, all right, how do I make these guys earn their LP? How do I really make these guys sweat for their LP? And even though I might lose that game, but if I can draw that game out from maybe a 25-minute loss to a 35-minute loss, and some of those games you might even win because they just get sloppy, they get complacent, they give a bounty, they overstay, they mess up their tempo, mess up their lane assignments. You can capitalize on that. But that is the mindset that prevents me from losing my mind, essentially. That's my toolkit.
And I love that thing you mentioned, latching onto something, because I also had a latch. It was different to your one, but it just sounds like as long as you have something else that's more important for you. So for you, making it hard for them to win is more important than having a Graves jungle that's 0-4, right? And for me, I brought it down to what I was working on because I wanted to get really, really good at my Olaf. So I was thinking all day, every day about my learning objectives, like not getting caught in losing sums, not picking a bad time to fight. I would be thinking about it at the gym when I wake up to pee. It's just like overwhelming me. So on a lot of my recent losses, I think I might have had a gen or something like that. I can't even remember. I only remember the mistakes related to my learning objective because I was so latched onto it. That was just the thing I cared the most about. So another one as well. One thing you'll see if you watch high rank solo queue, especially in Korea and Chow lobbies, is people are amazing at pinging, especially jungle support. The comms are on another level. So that's something I've tried to really level up myself, strong comms. And one thing that really just would break all my focus in the game is if I did really high level pings, 1 minute in advance, strong pings, making sure everyone is in the right place, right time, and people just ignore them. That would just drive me crazy and it sort of break my flow of the game. So how would you deal with something like that? Just losing all your momentum?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Okay, so I the way I would tackle this is, okay, so when you're dealing with tilt, or you're dealing with any kind of what I deem stage 4 issues, meaning mentality, mindset, that sort of thing, you can view it as, okay, we have a short-term kind of band-aid solution, right? You might view that as like a toolkit, something that you, like we mentioned before, you'll focus on the Olaf stuff, the make him surfer, LP mindset. And these are like direct little tools that you can implement. But then you also have kind of like long-term kind of, I guess, approaches to fixing or addressing the underlying belief. Okay. And so with this whole people ignoring pings, why people get really frustrated about that is that they fundamentally forget that everyone has their own interpretation of how to play the game. And there's this, we easily forget that, okay, I'm right, they're wrong. And we come into this game expecting, our expectation is that every single person is going to listen to your ping. But that's bullshit. That's fairyland, right? That's not reality. And so long term, if we want to address this, really, I would kind of reframe their approach, being like, okay, you can influence people on the Rift, but you cannot control people. And just by that simple shift in perspective, it's like, okay, I tried to influence this person. He chose to ignore me. That's okay, right? We're playing a game. We all have our different interpretations. We all have our different focus levels, whatever. That's okay. And then what's next, right? That ties into the toolkit. The toolkit is then, okay, given that situation, what's next? What does this play? What do I need to do now, given they just told me to piss off and ignored my ping, right? So you've got the toolkit, that's the what's next mentality. And then you've got the long-term addressing of like, we can only influence people, not control. And that would, if you can really embrace that, that's what's going to prevent you from feeling as tilted, as frustrated when that event happens.
Definitely. I love the what's next mentality. I remember used to teach it back in the day when we played on team together. And it's definitely really useful here because all you can do in League is the best possible play. So if you ping the best play and they're not listening, that's not the best play anymore. You have to adapt and find the next best thing. And if you can do that consistently, you might not win that exact game, but you'll win more often than you lose. And a lot of students, especially, they fall into the trap. I'll ask them like, oh, why didn't you ping anything here? My team don't listen to my pings. But that's not what I'm seeing in this review. I'm not seeing that. So you can't give up. Just because you did the right play and it didn't work 1 or 2 times, you can't give up. All you can do is the most consistent play every time.
There's actually a really awesome framework that shout out to Coach Cupcake, and he has, it's called the ACE framework. And now this is actually he was a support, really high level support, and he would work with 80 carries that were incompetent, right? And so he really struggled to figure out how do I carry these 80 carries? Like I know what to do, I know how to win, but like how do I get them to listen to me? And he came up with this thing. It's an acronym, ACE, right? A meaning acknowledge the best play. C is communicate the best play, and E is embrace reality, right? And a lot of people, they struggle with the E, embrace reality. And I love the way he framed that. You're embracing the reality of the situation. And so whenever you're in those scenarios, or even when you're reviewing these scenarios, bring it back to the ACE framework.
100%. Now, another one that was definitely a tough one, but when you are making a play, right, in League, there's probably going to be, let's just say 30 or 40 fights, and there's some that you just know, right, this is a good play. I'm committing to this. I'm sacrificing stuff in my lane maybe, and it goes wrong because somebody misplayed or my toxic narrative was, this guy played like he's bronze in a challenge game. That's why we lost that play. And again, bringing it back to the shot calling thing, the worst part about this is just breaking your momentum. Because if you're making good play, you communicate another one, boom, your Alistair flash combos the sky, and now it's losing. That can really throw you off. So is there a way to sort of like bounce back faster, I would say, from a play like that?
Yeah. Well, Chippys, I think you're a master of this. I think this is something that you're actually very good at. And I remember you did a lot of work with Jono back in the day as a pro player. And, you know, this is where, again, you need to have a recentering technique, right? Again, that's different for everyone. I think, you know, something that you were very good at, Chippys, is in those lull states, right? After the plays happen, say you lost the fight, play's done. Okay, take a deep breath or two, recenter, ask yourself, what's next? What do I got to do now? Because again, the moment what's going to happen is that we're all going to feel frustrated in those moments because you're going to be thinking, what if, oh, if only that Alistair hit the combo. Oh, what if you're projecting into the future, you're thinking, or you're reflecting on the past. You're not present in the here and now, right? So what we need to do is recenter. How do we bring our attention into the here and now? And we can do that by, like I said, taking a deep breath, resetting, asking ourselves high quality questions. What's the next objective? What am I going to do about it? What should the lane assignments be? You know, what's the win condition here? What's my role in this composition? Asking these high quality questions to get yourself thinking in a productive way. And again, getting you back to reality, getting you out of la la land, projecting in the future, thinking about the past. What do I need to do literally next? That would be the most effective technique.
100%. Yeah. Shout out, John. The breathing techniques back in the day really helps you just bring it back because you sort of train yourself in a way. When you start doing a 5-10 second deep breath, you're like, okay, I'm doing this to calm down, doing this to lock in. So when you do it, you're just ready to go. And one thing that I like to teach now is sort of like a self-pep talk in the game is it's okay to feel tilted. Like you said, if we are playing League and want to climb, you care and you're going to get tilted. It's okay to be tilted, but not okay to stay tilted. So just feel tilted for 5 seconds and then lock back in. What's the next best play? So definitely that's the best approach for sure. Now, another one definitely is, and this is probably more of a top lane special as the other roles kind of hang out a bit more. The game exploded before I could get out of my lane, especially in a matchup with no agency. So if you're in a matchup like, let's say, Jax versus Cassante, and the Cassante plays good, going even is your best move. If you go even, you did amazing, or versus Rumble maybe. Going even, you did a great game. But what if the game exploded everywhere else? So for mid, this might not be as big of a thing, but I'm guessing you're bringing it back to if you do that across 100 games, you do well. But is there anything that you would look out for that type of toxic narrative?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, ultimately, yeah, you're spot on. This is what it's all about. It's about leagues that, you know, solo queue's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's, again, addressing the long-term fundamental view of the game, right? That's not a toolkit per se. It's more so, you know, developing a healthier outlook on the game. And I think that, you know, that's just bound to happen, right? This is where the 30-30-40 rule comes into play. 30-30-40, right? Some games are going to be auto losses, some games are going to be auto wins, and the 40% of games are going to be on you, right? In your control. And so that might be a game that's just a 30% loss. It is what it is. So this doesn't mean these are the games. Look, it's not about you don't learn anything. You can still review them and see if you could have had more impact or did you miss an opportunity to get in the game. But the giant but here is that you don't want to over-review these games. If this is happening consistently, yes. If it's happening as an outlier, you wouldn't really give it much attention. You would just move on, queue up again, play again, get in the repetitions.
Exactly. That's a great point there. It was happening to me consistently. So what I did is I watched the two best players, one from NA, one from EU. So I watched Viper on NA and Raider on EU. They're the two best top laners, I'd say, Western solo queue players. And just watching them, they would find these little moments, even in these boring matchups, where they would just find like one gank mid or anything like that. And that's something I really tried to work on, because even in a non-interactive lane, there will be maybe one, maybe two, maybe three moments where you can actually impact the game if you're looking for it, if you're holding your TP, if you're using your priority and looking mid every time. And I remember this one game, I versed, I don't know if it's Derry King or something, some Darius was chopping me up. I was 0-3, just staying even. He based, I got one timer, roam mid, it was actually against Rookie, and he was playing Phase Rush Rise. Olaf cannot kill that, but he didn't respect on that one timer. I chunk him, burn his flash, and then my team's mid gets the first move, and we kind of win the game off that. It's like, wow, even in this game where I completely shit the bed early game, and I'm really far behind, I still found this one timer that had impact. And if you can find 1, 2, or 3 of those every time, you're going to do way better across 100 of those in non-interactive matchup games.
I love that. And I'll just say here, because we're talking about specifically claiming to challenger, that is, I would say, one of the barriers to a lot of master tier players, because a master tier player, their mindset is, oh, I did enough. I'm good enough. I'm fine, right? The ego, and I did a whole video on my YouTube channel about the master tier rank, master tier players in general, why people get stuck. And the master tier player looks at that whole sequence, or that they think, oh, I'm the best. I've done fine. Oh, my teammates are trash. They entered the game, right? But the reality is that what you just said there, you found that one angle. You were curious enough to be like, you know what? Let's see what the rank one guy over here and what the rank one over there is doing. And you were humble enough and had a respect for the difficulty of the game enough to feel like there was something else you could have done. And there probably is definitely, like you said, 1, 2, 3 little things that is the difference between a grandmaster or a master and a grandmaster, or a grandmaster and a challenger, or whatever. That is it. Welcome to League of Legends. You're at the top. You're at the pinnacle, right? We're talking about the pinnacle here, right? And you know that the biggest thing getting in the way of that is your ego. So let go. Right, let go.
Yeah. All right. The final toxic narrative I had to deal with was my own champion pool. And I think a lot of tops have this. I'm guessing in the mid lane academy, same with TLM. The biggest question is, my champ sucks now. Like, I need a new champ there. What do I do when Darius is a hard Darius game? Stuff like that. And my narrative was, my champion sucks compared to the broken meta champs. I wasn't playing Rumble, Ambassador, Jace, these broken S tier champs who are just slightly OP at the moment. I was playing like Olaf, who I'd say was around B tier, or Jax, who loses to all of them. And I really had to overcome that mental barrier. So what's your approach to deal with a student like that?
Yeah, okay, it's a good question. I think in the context of Master Plus specifically, right? If we're talking about Master Plus, you know, this is where, you know, really investing in a pool long-term and really champion pool cycling comes into play, right? I mean, so there's two things, right? You do want to think about, is my pool viable to make the climb? Okay. Because I'm not going to sit here and gaslight people. There are pools that are just so bad that you're literally making your journey incredibly, incredibly difficult. Right. And now alternatively, right, there are probably higher level players who main your champion and are getting results. So both those things can coexist. So what you would really want to do, let's say you're loving your champions, you really want to double down on them. That's where it's time to do your research. Get into the details, watch OTPs, get obsessed, right? Don't play the victim, take maximum accountability and responsibility and get creative, whether it's with your builds, your runes, the way you're playing your level ones, the way you're playing waves, whatever. Literally every aspect of the game, you can take a look at it, get inspiration from others, get creative, right? League's a very creative game at the highest level. And then as well as, let's say you're not motivated to do that, then it's probably a sign that you need a champion pool cycle. Maybe you need to have a better response to the meta. And that is also the case. So it really depends on the person, but I would say they're kind of your two options.
Yeah, and one big thing as well, and I add on to that, I'm not sure if it's similar to mid, but in top, when it comes to meta strong champs, you don't really need to one-trick them. So if you check the top of the ladder, anyone that plays Rumble probably plays Ambassador, Jace, and all those good champs. But the people that aren't playing them, they pretty much only play one champ. And that's something I had to really accept, because when you're a pro player, having a big pool is really important. So every season I'm playing, you know, my 3 or 4 favorites and the meta champs like Renekton or Indonar, whatever's good. So now as a coach and just, you know, someone that's playing solo queue, I don't have to have a pool of 10. I could just focus on one. And even on this journey, I started with Jax and Olaf, and then I had to shrink it just to Olaf. And because my champion might not be as good as the better ones, that just means I might need to perform better and really work on those little 1%ers. So like you said, there are champs that can't do it. I think if you're like a Tom top or something, probably you want to cycle it out a little bit. But I would say most champs, you can have a successful climb if you really build up those 1%ers. Sure, you might need to play better than the meta abusing guys, but if you love your champion, you're going to enjoy that way more. All right, now to finish up, we're just going to be going through some more general mindset questions that we get asked pretty much every day in our academies. So the first one being, how do you deal with really frustrating streaks of games in a row? Let's say you had 4 games in a row where your jungle is just 0-8, people typing, you know, all of that stuff. How do you mentally deal with that when you're trying hard, but maybe your teammates aren't for long periods of time throughout the day?
Yeah, so I want to answer this very much like a coach. And, you know, typically when I get these sorts of things, people slam an OPGG with like 4 losses in a row, right?
Yeah.
I always am I would say, I don't really believe that they had 4 auto losses, right? Or 4 really, really hard games. Like usually if you're getting game after game after game after game that is hard, you are contributing to it in some way, shape, or form, whether or not you're aware of it, right? You may have 1 or maybe 2. But it's very unlikely that you're getting back to back really kind of auto loss, really, really hard games. So So if I'm just at a high level, if I was in that position, I had a bunch of bad games in a row. I've learned that about myself because I've fallen into that trap. I usually take a break. I get off the PC. I come back an hour later, maybe even the day after, and I'll actually, before I queue up, I'll re-watch just the games. Like I'll skim through what happened in those games. Like it felt like a blur. What the hell happened? And I'll be able to see things that I wasn't able to see the day before because I've got this objective kind of clear mind. And when you're in the shit and you're super frustrated, you're like, oh my God, not again, not again. It's so hard to remain objective about what's actually going on in your game. So I guess practically taking that break, get the hell off the PC. This is why we recommend processes in the WTL academies. Whether you play in 3 blocks or 4 blocks or 5 blocks, whatever, make sure you have a cutoff so you're not going to tilt queue throughout the night and lose hundreds and hundreds of LP. And get off the PC, because chances are, if you've had 3 or 4 losses in a row, there is no way in hell that you're going to be objective about what actually happened. You're going to be emotional, right? You're going to want to vent, complain, shit talk, whatever. Go away, come back later with a refreshed mind. That's the biggest advice I can give.
I love the mindset of stepping away. I kind of had a soft rule for this climb where if I'm ever actually tilted, so maybe ping someone, alt tab, whatever, you're done for the day. Even if I had, 2 more games in my block, no, I don't deserve to play. And I remember you said this before. I think it was like an MSI or something, just to throw that in there, but like playing is a privilege. Playing this game is a privilege here. So I like to think about it more like that. If I want to climb to Korean Challenger versus all these 16-year-olds who are trying to be the next Faker, I can't just like tilt queue and just play like that. So I stop after the 1 and come back, away from the computer, come back fresh and really review why. And a little answer to this, like, don't let yourself have frustrating streaks. Sure, you can have lost streaks, but a frustrating streak where it keeps going, it's really hard to dig yourself out of. And to give a terrible analogy, it's like if you have just had 1 beer and your friend offers you one, but you got to drive home, it's okay to say no. But if you had 6 or 7, you're going to keep it going. You're not going to stop. And that's sort of the same as tilt queuing. It's really hard to stop after that 5th beer. So I'd say definitely just cut yourself off after the 1 and come back with a fresh perspective, come back sober and actually find the problem. All right, our next question, how to break out of being tilted. And we kind of just touched on it, taking a step back from the computer. But what if you have limited time to play? You're a full-time worker, something like that, and you don't want to just play, 1 game for the day. How do you actually break out of that and get back refreshed in a suitable amount of time?
Yeah, I love this question because, again, what you'll hear is, again, the tried and true, like, get into the review, look at how you contributed to the game, yada, yada, yada. But like, again, like if you're someone who gets that tilted where you have to end your session after 1 loss, chances are you've got a systemic problem that needs to be addressed. That is not a sustainable way of viewing the game. Like, at the end of the day, Chippys, like, we love the game, right? Even if you have a bad game, you love the game so much that you're going to want to play again. You're not going to get so hung up on 1 game, right? So if you're getting so hung up on like 1 or 2 games that you literally can't progress and can't express your best self, that means you've got some serious unmanaged expectations. And that's where what I call stage 4 issues, such as maybe you've got expectations about how fast you can climb. You've got expectations imposed on you from friends or family that where you feel like you've got to prove something, or you are trying to climb to a rank in a particular amount of times to get into some collegiate team or whatever the hell it is. You need to deal with this shit first. Okay. It's not a sustainable way to go about your journey. And so have that honest conversation with yourself. Why do I feel like that? And one of my biggest tips for this is go to the moment in the VOD that where it starts. Where is it that it feels like this tilt is overwhelming? After the game, go to that and ask it why. Why did it bother me so much? But then ask why again and ask why again. Ask why 3 or 4 times until you get to the root core or crux of the problem. And you'll start to be able to really diagnose that underlying issue. That would be where I would start. Now, if you're just an average person who gets tilted every now and then and you feel like you don't want to, tilt queue, process comes into play. That's where, again, high quality questions. How did I contribute to that game? What can I learn from this game? Focusing on the learning over the LP, yada, 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 all that kind of boring, basic coach shit. And that's really it. But again, I would say the core message here is don't accept that reality of like feeling tilted and have to stop playing. That's not normal, guys. And we need to address that.
Yeah, you got to attack the problem 100%. So this next one, I feel like it's something you can relate to a lot now that we've been coaching for a long time. How do you have the discipline to actually execute the things you know consistently? So my easiest example for this is, let's say your lane's in an amazing position, you're just smashing them, you've got a dive coming, and you know the jungler's top. You just feel it, the enemy jungler isn't here, and then you don't respect it and you die to a gank, but you knew that. And I found this really common with long-term students who understand the game better from listening to us coaching and coming to a lot of sessions. And they ask this question as well. How do I have the discipline to execute things I already know?
It's a complex question because there are many things at play here. The first thing that I would really I would say and this is for me as well, is that just because I've executed upon something in the past doesn't mean I actually know something. And the way you want to view it is like everything's on a scale, right? It's not black and white. You don't either know it or don't know it. Everything is, it's like imagine it's like you might give it like a rating of 8 out of 10. That means if I'm in this exact scenario, 8 out of 10 times, 10 times, I'm going to be able to execute upon that 8 times out of 10. So you know it pretty well, but you don't know it so well that you would do it blindfolded while drunk, right? That's not the reality. So I like to kind of contextualize it. Let's say I die to something that I deem basic. I give myself permission to make mistakes because if I'm honest with myself, I know that I probably couldn't autopilot make this decision every single time. Maybe I move it 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10, but there's still room for improvement. So like, I would argue that they actually don't know it well enough. So that's one thing. The second thing is, are they playing with intensity? Are they locked in? Do they really want to win? Are they using their LoL saves to really prime them? Like, are they engaged in the game, or are they just going through the motions? Right. That's a second thing. And number 3, like, are they excited? Do they have a goal? Like, when you're playing your best League of Legends, and I think many people can attest to this, like you're really wanting to achieve something. Like you really want to win. You know what I mean? Like you're not just playing for the sake of like, oh, I'm going to queue up and play some League of Legends. Like you want to win the game. You want to climb. You want to improve. And so like, I think that ties into the intensity, but I also think it ties into your why, knowing your why. Why are you playing the game? What are you trying to get out of your journey? Are you okay with pissing away time on the Rift? That's a personal question. But the reality is that I would say that they're the multiple things that I would kind of, mull over.
Now, definitely bringing it back to that goal. You've probably seen it yourself, but I've had a lot of students where they're working really hard. Every week you see them playing amazing. They get to their diamond goal or their master goal, and then they just drop back after a couple of weeks because that excitement's gone, like job's done, and they're just playing the game now. So having that intensity, that excitement, really important. And one thing I want to bring it back to is you mentioned, do you know it well enough? I find there's a big difference between knowing something and actually having it as a good habit that you can do, like you said, 8 out of 10 times. So just because just because you're good at jungle tracking, you know when they're there. If you're not respecting it, you're not actually good at jungle tracking. It's not a habit. It's something you have to work on. So definitely, you just got to accept reality. You're not as good at that skill as you might think, even though you're thinking about it in the game. All right, and for our final question, and this one's sort of a big one, how do you care more about your learning and your process than the game result? Because we're all playing to win this game. So how do you actually care more about your learning objectives than killing the Nexus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is a clear-cut answer to this because I think everyone's wired differently, right? So I'm going to give you a few things to chew on, but I don't want anyone to like follow this blindly, right? So again, I would say that both can coexist. You can really want to win, but you can also really want to learn. And ultimately, if you want to, because you got to remember, LP is a byproduct of a level of play, right? When you look at the rank 1 player, they are just, objectively performing the best in the game. They're making the best quality decisions in that patch at that moment with those champions, right? So the reality is that you have to remind yourself that LP is a byproduct of just getting better at the game. So yes, your goal when you queue up every single game is to express what I currently know. I want to play to my limit. Right? Whatever that limit is, I want to be able to go out there, show the world what I got, show myself what I got. And the reason where that motivation should come from is because I want to know that every single mistake I made in this game is truly my level of play. Right? Now, the beauty of that is that when you get into the review and you look at that, right, you could be honest. You'd be like, wow, yeah, that is my level of play. That is what I need to know better. So I guess how to care about the learning is that it's having faith and having confidence that if I consistently make sense of my mistakes, I solve these puzzles, I take a few things away from every single game, that's going to add and compound over time to make me the player that I want to be. So I would say that the motivation stems from, again, a goal, becoming a better player rather than looking like a better player, but also internalizing that I do still need to really care about the win, because if I don't, I'm not going to play with intensity. And if I'm not playing with intensity, I'm not going to be able to review my games properly because I've got no skin of the game. I've got no accountability for the mistakes, the decisions that I'm making on the Rift. So I don't really like the wording. Like I don't really even need to care more about learning than the game result. Like I would say it's equal. You need to equally care about the game result and the learning that you're going to get away from it. So I would say that's, and I think that's a lot more achievable for most people.
100%. That's pretty much exactly my biggest change from this year to last year. Last year, I was queuing up to make guides, to make content, to stay up to date on the patch. And if I got Korean challenges, sweet. You know, it's just sort of the extra on the back. But here I just thought, man, I've been coaching for so long. I want to show my students that what I'm saying and the processes I recommend actually work. And that was the reason I was playing every day. That was why I was playing queue up. And then the results just came naturally. We got a way higher win rate than expected, just because the goal that I had in mind, and that kind of, like we talked about before, you're excited, you really want to play and do well, it's all flowing back into me. Moving on to communication, and I've made this section to cover the age-old question, chat versus pings, what's the most optimal for solo queue? And I'll tell you right now, the most impactful thing you can do for your client by far, that only takes a second, is getting that chat off. Disable chat right now. I promise you, the positives of turning it off far outweigh the negatives, but it's not even close. Get that chat off. I've never seen a student in Challenger, Master, Emerald, Bronze, I've never seen one where chat was better for them than not using it. Now, I'm not saying there aren't positives to it. I know people find it fun. It's enjoyable to talk in games where your team's winning and having a good time, or in situations where it's very specific what you want to do, like play slow, play fight slow, or ward for me bottom. You know, sometimes it can be nice. I'm not saying there is zero positives to it, but the negatives far outweigh it. It's not even close. And in my opinion, this may come as a wake-up call, but if you have chat on, you don't truly want to win and improve at the game as a top priority. You want to enjoy, you want that little interaction, you want to have a bit more fun with it, and that's not a problem. If you want to kind of climb and also enjoy talking to teammates and stuff, that's your journey. That's fine. But for me, I just wanted to climb and improve as much as possible. That was my whole focus. And having chat on is a massive distraction for anyone. I've never seen a player have chat on and it be more useful than not. I've seen specific situations where chat is useful, but over a long period of time, it never matters. Don't focus on that one game where you said, don't worry guys, we can win, and your jungler started trying. It doesn't matter. The best way to untilt your teammates is winning the game, making good plays, showing that you're tryharding with good pings and good decisions. That is always going to outperform being a little therapist in the chat. And that not only takes away from your gameplay, but the most impactful thing for me, it takes away from your improvement. How can you work on, and this applied to me a lot, I was working on a lot of learning objectives at the same time this year for this climb. How can I work on 3 to 5 things and say play slow, get me wards bottom, and read what they're saying to each other? It's such a waste of time, such a distraction. Get that chat off right away. I promise you, it's holding you back. And that's not even including the times where people are tilting and it frustrates you seeing what they're saying. There were definitely times on my climb where my AD carry would have been telling my support to go jump off a bridge, but I don't even know. I don't even know. In my mind, he's just a 0-5 AD carry who just keeps getting caught, and I'm playing around it. So definitely get that chat on, that chat off. It's really impactful. Now, you might be thinking, but sometimes when I ping, they don't listen. And 9 times out of 10, I think my students in TLA are getting better at it now. 9 times out of 10, I see people say I pinged, their pings are garbage. Trust me, if your pings aren't listened to consistently, your pings are not good. That's just the reality of the situation. Pinging is a skill like anything that you can improve on. And my favorite example for this is, imagine you died to a mid gank and you look at the chat and your mid just pinged once, missing in action. That is a garbage ping. It's not your fault you died. I mean, it is your fault, but that's a garbage ping. He pretty much didn't even ping there. Compare that to if he pinged on your head, back ping, back ping, back ping, and then in the top river, missing in action, kind of in the line, the route that his mid lane is going to kill you. That's real pinging. That's a big difference. And I see people back pinging their team off a dragon fight. They're already there. They're already dashing in. Imagine 45 seconds, you back ping the dragon itself before your team gets there and gets all their wards down, and maybe they can make it play top. So pinging is definitely a skill that you should work on and practice improving, and getting that chat off will really help you focus purely on your own gameplay, on your own learning objectives. Yes, chat can be fun sometimes. It can be tilting sometimes. It's all distracting, good or bad, for the journey. So I really recommend working on the ping system. Now, even if your pings are perfect, they won't be listened to every single time, so be ready to adapt. This is something people struggle with as well. They'll ping well, people won't listen, and then they won't ping the next time. It's not about that one specific situation or that one game. If you ping really well over 500 games, I promise you the pings will be listened to most of the time, and it'll win you more games than it won't. So it's a really impactful skill to work on, and I highly recommend it over chat. Most people don't use chat anyway or don't even listen. I have a really good example. So on my Chell climb for the season, I used chat once. I typed one single sentence out of all of my games this season. And the reason why is I was playing in a game, I was Zilean mid with Kindred. And Zilean Kindred, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but Zilean wants to ulti first, because Kindred's ulti saves him and everyone else, and all the enemy teammates, right? So I want to ulti first as Zilean, and my ult cooldown's really short later. So I turned on chat just to type, I'll ult first, like Zilean R first, let me ult first next time, and then I turn chat back off. And you best believe it, the very next fight, Kindred gets engaged on, I'm right next to him, and we both ult at the same time. And I just realized, okay, there's just no point. And yes, and if I did that with 10 Kindreds, maybe 4 or 5 of them listen, right? But it just doesn't matter. That distracted my mental stack, and seeing him did that made me want to go down the net cafe and rough him up the second I saw him ulti after typing that. So that's something else as well. If you type something and people don't listen to it, it's way more frustrating than pinging, I found in my experience anyway. So definitely it's not worth it. Yes, the Kindred might listen sometimes, but I can just adapt. I can just see, okay, he's ulting first. Let me, let him ult first and save mine. I'll only ult him if he's CC'd or something like that, right? It would have been better for me to adapt my gameplay instead of typing, and that's just a really good lesson, and that applies for everything. Yes, there will be really specific situations. I think play fight slow or, target this guy can be good, but you can ping that as well. You can back ping, danger ping, to play the fight slowly, or you can just all in ping the guy you want to focus. I think pings can cover literally 99% of things you want to use chat for, and that 1% that chat does do well for, it doesn't outweigh the negatives of having chat on. It's going to slow down your journey, your improvement, your consistency, so get it off right away. So with this VOD here, I'm going to showcase a couple of quick examples of communication and really driving the bus in the second example. So here you can see, I've got Ghost, I've got Flash, I've got TP. I want a TP bot so badly and swing this game completely in our favor. So right here, I'm pinging to my team. I'm pinging my Corky's Trinket, letting him know, hey, you have a stealth ward up, buddy. I have TP. You have a ward, I have TP, and then assist me, pinging him exactly where to get that ward going. So I assist pinged it first, and then ward, TP, let him know I want a TP flank. Now, I didn't end up using it in this game, but you can see if you're just a bit creative with the ping system, you don't need to type anything. And then I'll skip to when the pings really came into play. So I push in bottom, rotate mid, numbers advantage, get this double kill here. And now, right now, you can see, actually before this, all in. I want to play for Baron here. I'm a 2-item spike Olaf. I'm at my strongest. I really want to play for Baron. So I kill this wave. And then I start pinging on my way to Baron right now. Really shortly. On my way, I think after the Sivir dies, I start pinging a Baron. Boom. Go. All in. You can see right now, very strong commanding pings the second that Sivir dies. The second that this Baron's on the table. Now, this Talia made it easy for us. Thank you, Talia. So, but you can see here, I'm already on my way. I'm not celebrating. I'm even reporting her as I rotate to Baron and spamming all-in ping right here and driving the bus. I guarantee you, look at my teammates after this kill. Oh, let's push mid. Let's farm the wave. Even the jungler's hitting the wave as Talia's Ghost as Viego. And I'm like, no, we must do Baron on this timer. I'll just do it myself then. Even TF gets caught inside. Classic solo queue player, doesn't matter. We end up getting Baron from the situation. So you can see him. There's a big difference between assist me a Baron, guys, and all in on my way, making your team do Baron. Really important. And even before the more, advanced, maybe not advanced, but the more specific pieces of communication, I need a flank ward bottom so I can TP. You can communicate that very easily with pings without being too overwhelming. It's very clear for your teammates to follow that. You don't need to have the chat on and go get through all those negatives. Just make sure the main learning from this example is there is a big difference between pinging late or pinging softly, like on my way, assist me, and the second that you get that opportunity, all in. Go to Baron right now. I promise you, the all-in ping is overpowered. Moving on to win conditions, and playing for the win con is definitely extremely impactful in every single rank that you play, and especially in high ranks where you're not going to be the win con every game. It's really important to cut down the variables of a league game. every league game. It's just so many variables to it. But if you clearly identify which win condition, what the win condition is for each team, then it can really help you cut out all the fat and play for the best course of action. Now, the win condition can be complicated at times. There are so many variables, but for 90% of games, win conditions don't overcomplicate it. A lot of the time it's quite simple. It's whoever's the strongest in the game. If your Aphelios is 9-1, he's the win condition. Allow him to do damage. If you stop the enemy team killing him, he'll probably kill everyone. It's very simple. If your Akali is really fed, then play with her. If your Nocturne's really strong, don't make a play if he doesn't have ulti. A lot of time, it's very, very simple. The strongest champion on each team, or strongest 1 to 2, are the win conditions, so you want to play for that. If the enemy Aphelios has 9 kills, then killing him is the win condition, or he's going to obliterate your whole team. If you can one-shot him before he does that, you win. If you don't, you lose. So a lot of time, you can simplify it that way. Don't overcomplicate it, especially if you're in ranks below Master. Just keep the win conditions like that in your mind and work on other skills. But for high-ranked players, it can be good to know the variables, so I'll touch on that as well. The other 10% is much more difficult. It really relies on understanding what all the champions do in the game and playing to the strengths of the ones on your team. Because a lot of people, myself included, don't like playing with shitty champions like Pyke or Blitzcrank who can't teamfight well, or like Graves Jungle. But it's important to identify that no matter how ugly your comp is, there are win conditions. So I'll give some examples of more advanced win conditions. If you're playing with Twisted Fate versus Orianna, and the rest of the comps are kind of like that, they are probably going to win team fights. They're going to have an advantage in a team fight with their Orianna teamfight comp, especially if it's not just TF and 4 great team fighters, right? Maybe your TF Camille or something. In that game, making picks inside is your win con. So don't engage. 5v5, don't TP flank them and ping TF to go on 5v5. Push inside, make numbers advantages, get TF to die side with you or go gank for him. He's got good gank setup, stuff like that. Utilize the champions on your team. Another example would be Nocturne. Don't make any play if his ulti's down. That champ is the worst champ in the game without ulti, so if you start a fight or you get caught inside or something happens with his ulti's down, that's a big problem. Play around that as well. Another one will be 80 carry, but a little bit more advanced. 10k 80 carry, obvious, but to get more specific, maybe we're playing Jinx, and she just can't survive without flash. Don't start the Baron and make a Baron fight happen in the next minute. Wait the 2-3 minutes for a flash to come back up and then play for the fight, especially if they have champions like Jarvan or something that she needs flash to dodge their combo. Or if she's close to IE. If your 80 carry's got pickaxe BF, maybe don't start a fight right away. Maybe give that second air dragon and wait for their third item. You can kind of see the trend now. So it's more about problem solving what you need to win fights. What's the optimal condition for fighting? Now, in my opinion, if you're the win condition, the game's super easy. It's super simple. Just play to your champ's identity. If I'm Olaf, I'm going to wait for both my sums are up if I'm the win con and beat the shit out of them with both my sums around a neutral objective. It's very clear. Or if I'm playing Gwen, maybe I'll be very greedy inside until I've got my death cap level 16, right? If you're the win condition, it's very simple. Play to your champ's identity. If you don't know that, that's what guides and studying and all that good stuff is for. You can check out my guides for that as well. And just make sure if you're the win con, you pick your moments very well. A lot of people feel when they're fed or the win con, they have to do stuff. I'm so fed. If I don't do something, we're going to lose. Again, that fear of not doing anything and losing always overrides the fear of throwing. You should be more scared of throwing, in my opinion. So it's more important for you to just play to your champ's identity and really pick your moments well. Don't force it. Again, the Olaf example, I'll use it because I use Olaf on my clan. If I do a bad objective fight and use my subs poorly, that's game breaking. That is game losing compared to my 0-5 80 carry going from 0-5 to 0-8. That doesn't even matter. My ghost is more valuable than his life times 3. So it's more important for me as the win con to pick my moments extremely well. If you make a bad play when you're the win con, take that super seriously, review it. Why? Why did you make that? Figure out why. And don't just feel, I was pressured because my team was feeding and I was fit. No, that's all bullshit made up in your head. Figure out the actual reason why you did that. Now, the win conditions. You should have a clear idea of what the win conditions are. I'd say around the time you get your first item. That's a good sign. The win conditions can change, but by the time you got your first item, it should be pretty clear what the win con is. It's hard to choose the win con going into a game. Your win con might be, all right, we need to snowball Renekton and Elise, and then your Kassadin randomly gets 4 solo kills, unexpectedly. Now, here's your win con, right? So it's important for you to, around the time you got your first item, you should see, and a lot of games especially, you'll be like, okay, the enemy bot lane is their win condition. If I can TP and shut them down, that's really impactful in the game. But if the enemy mid's the win condition, maybe I look to gank mid and shut them down, stuff like that. So it's really, really important for you to identify that, especially around the time you got your first item. You can do it earlier, of course. You'll know it earlier a lot of the time, but I'm saying by your first item, you should know. And also that kind of coincidence, by the time you have your first item, you're probably the strongest champ in the game as a top laner, so that's when you want to be looking to make plays anyway. So it's really important for you. So around your win conditions teammates, pretty much you don't want to make plays without them. It's pretty rare unless it looks 100% free. Imagine a game, it's happened to everyone, you're 9-0 or something, and your team just fights without you. It makes you want to headbutt your monitor, right? So don't do that to your teammates. If they're the win con, play with them, and not just only fighting with them, do what they want to do. If you're Aphelios, your Aphelios doesn't want to dive with you. Even if I'm Olaf, if my AD carry's carrying me, I will sit on him, I will kill the Viego, I'll kill the Kimmel, whatever's trying to give him any trouble, and allow him to do his job. Even though it's more fun for me to kill the 0-7 Varus, right? So it's really important for you to identify your champ's win con. If you're playing with a Viego, you need to set him up for a reset, so try to kill someone nearby him. If you're playing with Akali, try to dive with her onto the targets she selects. Stuff like that. Really try to facilitate your win con. And the enemy win con, try to make it hard for them. If their Jinx is 10-1, probably don't use any spells on their top laner that dives in or whatever, right? You want to use all your spells, all your CC, hold it for them. Make it hard for them to do their job. Or if they want to just 5v5 team fight with their Malphite, Orianna, Bronzodia, play side lane. Make them answer you. You can kind of see the pattern now. But again, bringing it back to the simplicity. 90% of win cons are crystal clear. Don't overcomplicate it. The most fed member of the team, what do they want to do? And yes, that relies on you knowing what every champ in league does. Of course, having a rough idea of it. So definitely, and knowing their conditions as well. So if you felt like you played with a fed champion, let's just say randomly a new champ, you played with fed Zahen, you don't know what they do. Figure out what they do. It's really important to know so that you can facilitate them next time. And one more thing I want to touch on, sometimes the win condition will change. For example, let's say the enemy AD carry is, or your AD carry is 0-4. In the early game, he's not a win con. In fact, he's a lose con. So you're probably not going to be playing with him. But if the game keeps going longer and longer and longer, and then, okay, my Fearless now has 4 items, i.e. Lord Doms is looking like a juicer, now you can play with him. Now he's strong enough to classify as a win condition. So don't be so, black and white with it. Sometimes you're the win con as Renekton, but the game goes 40 minutes. Sorry, you're not the win con anymore. It's something else. So it can change in the game. So make sure that's, why I'm pressing tab a lot to see items, see what's strong, see, all that good stuff. Use that information well. Sometimes the win condition will change. But a lot of the time, it will be quite similar. If your AD carry is fed early game, probably they're going to be fed late game. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't always mean they're going to carry the game. It just means you put, and if you play for them, it's going to work out every time. It just means you put more mental stack and try to play to the optimal conditions. And especially, I'd say the big learning here is the more difficult situation. This was the biggest thing that helped me. Because before, of course, I knew win con playing for them is easy. But the thing I did better now, compared to last season, is the champs I don't like playing with. So pretty much champs that suck at team fighting. Because if everyone's good at team fighting, it's very simple. Just team fight. But if you play with champs that rely on playing a creative way, like Evelynn or Pyke or Twisted Fate, playing with them and facilitating their champion strengths, that is the most difficult part of this, but it's definitely something you can do. If you play with Blitzcrank, you must get to the objective early, buy more sweepers and pinks and stuff like that, sweep out the area, because if they don't get a hook, it's pretty much playing a 4v5 in the fight. If they do get a hook on a prior target, they're useful, so definitely play to that. Same with TF, make sure you utilize his ulti. I remember there was one fight very clearly that opened my eye and made me realize, okay, I need to play to win conditions better, is I engaged a fight as a pretty good flank opportunity, and my TF's ulti was 10 seconds out. If I just waited for that, it would have been an amazing play. But I didn't really care about my TF that much in that moment because he wasn't having a good game. But it doesn't matter if he's carrying or doing badly. He's playing Twisted Fate. I want to use his champion strength. And again, let's just say your AD carry is doing well. They're close to item, they're close to flash. That's like the next level of it as well. So now I'm going to showcase some very clear examples of playing to the win condition, starting with this game here where I had to play more so to shut down the enemy team's win con, instead of play to my own, as I didn't have a win condition on my team. Everyone on my team had played quite poorly, jungle had been doing fine of course, but a 2-item Tillium, not really a win con, and look at the AD gap here. 4-item 1k shutdown Jinx versus this useless Aphelios who's down 100 CS. So right now the biggest win condition out of all 10 champions in this game is this Jinx. So I went for the crit build in this game because I knew if I don't kill her in a team fight, we're going to lose. No one else can kill her. The other people on my team don't do damage. I'm the only one who has a chance. If I built normally this game and played normally, I would have lost. But I built and I played in a way where I want to shut down their win condition. So I TP flank here instead of just playing with my team. Right now, if we swapped Jinx with Aphelios, that's all we did. Just swap Jinx and Aphelios, I would not TP flank. I would play to allow Jinx to allow the win condition to do her job. But in this game, Jinx is the enemy team's win condition. Unfortunately, she's not on my team. So creative TP flank. I build that's more damage oriented so I can one-shot her. Even if I build defensive, I wouldn't be able to sustain her damage. And holding my summoner spells and all my major abilities for her. So boom, get the flash barrier and the 1k shutdown on the Jinx. I guarantee if I build normally here, I wouldn't have been able to shut her down there with that damage. So you can kind of see in this game here, where there was no chance of winning if I played a standard front to back 5v5, building more and death down stuff like that. No way we could have won, but because I built and played with my positioning and not wasting spells, my summoner spells on anyone else except the Jinx. Imagine on a previous fight if I flashed to kill, their jungle or something like that, I wouldn't have been able to kill her there, and that actually led to us winning the game eventually later on. And here I have one of the best examples of playing to my own team's win condition, and not one where my AD carry is just carrying the game. Imagine last game if I'm on their team, 10 kill Jinx, easiest win con of all time. Don't let her die, you win. She dies, you lose, right? This game, my win condition is actually something a little bit different, and I'll showcase it when I press tab. So whenever I press tab, you'll see here, my bot lane is not really the win condition, because even though he's not far behind or anything like that, it's a poke Varus versus a almost full build Caitlyn. So she's gonna hard outperform, and it's pretty hard to keep Varus alive anyway versus Jarvan Akali. So in this game, on my team, the win condition is not bot lane, it's actually our assassins. Look at our mid and jungle's items. They are really strong. They're both 4 items at the moment, really powerful, Echo getting close. So in this game, it's better for us to play for more creative picks and flanks. That is the win condition of our team. Because in a pure 5v5 handshake with our comps, Jarvan and Nico and a full build Caitlyn is going to outperform champs like Varus and Kiana. So we need to use our assassins to get creative and get a flank going. And you'll see here really shortly how I carried the win condition. Look what my Echo wants to do right now. Even though Baron's up and a 5v5 is bound to happen soon, he's like, no, I have to go catch 2 waves bottom. So you'll see what I do really shortly. Should have actually done it earlier if I was really min-maxing this review. You can see assist me. No. We need a flank. We need to get there first. You can't go bottom and TP in late to the fight on an Echo, on a Kiana. That's not your champ's identity. We need to get creative and get behind it. Look at him pinging missing like, no, my farm. Who cares, bro? Just come here right now. We need to get creative flanks going. And this is definitely more of a higher elo skill, because I think a silver Echo would just base it for sure. So we're going around here, we're going around. Got my sweeper going as well, swapping to sweeper this game, because I know I want to be looking for these angles. And you'll see, okay, they see me and Echo. The coast is clear, guys, we're safe, but the Kiana in our back pocket, following my call, getting that nice creative flank going. And you'll see in about 2 seconds, little spoiler there, boom, the creative flank, no 5v5, no Jarvan, Akali, Nico engage on our backline. Creative flanks made it impossible for this full build Caitlyn to even really get an auto attack off. We get the kills, we win the game off this play. So this was what I would call a game-winning call that all came down to me assessing, okay, our win condition is the creative flanks from our assassins, not our AD carry. Even if Varus died here, it wouldn't have changed the outcome at all. Not even 1%, because me, Echo, and Kiana, we got our champion identity down and made it hard for their really strong backline to use their champions. And actually, if we go back in time from this example, it's a really good showing of adapting in the game, reassessing the win condition in real time. So here you can see I'm assist pinging mid, let's go get mid push, and then we can get control, playing like it's a normal kind of 5v5 style of comp, where we can hard engage on them, or we can play a front to back. So I'm trying to get the mid push here, but they have the hard engage, they have the better, ease of execution comp with a stronger backline and an easier engage comp. And you can see they just engage on my team as we're trying to get control around the area. There's one shot the Varus unplayable for him, and we actually end up losing this fight. Even though I'm really fed this game, I smashed this Akali in lane, we end up losing this fight because I didn't play the conditions of our team. I played more standard. Get mid push, get vision, but that wasn't the win con from this fight. And if we see, I adapted straight away on the very next fight. Where are we? Where are we? This next dragon here. So you can see it like on my way. I'm trying to communicate to my team, let's get creative flanks going. Varus is not the win con. Doesn't matter what AD carry may tell you, they're not the win con every single game. The Varus is not the win con, so you can see I get a nice creative flank position, and with this flank boom onto Nico, we get a really pressuring, really hard position for them to play here. So you can see, even though Kiana did most of the heavy work here, I'm not going to lie, my positioning, my kind of foresight on how to play to the win condition was very, very good here. And this actually got us Dragon Soul, I'm pretty sure. So that's why we're so strong at this point. And then I did the same thing again here. No echo, stop basing, stop basing. We need to use our comp. We need to get creative. We need to look for these flanks. Because if we play normally like we tried to 2 fights ago, we're just going to get hard engaged on and lose. And for our final example, I wanted to showcase a win condition from early game. So a pretty straightforward one here, but still a pretty solid example. So the win condition as of right now, as of this game state, is not to kill this teamer. He has phase rush, so him dying is in his control. Swifty Boots phase rush is not going to die to me unless he does something dumb, especially since I have no summoner spells. Now, Genki mid. What about Genki mid? Victor, Ori, kind of just wave clear, do nothing. That's not really the win con either. So my win con here is trying to make a play bottom. So right now, all I'm thinking about is trying to make a proactive teleport to bot lane. That's all that's on my mind. So I'm just going to one-shot waves as quickly as I can. You can see Q, stride break, just one-shot the wave. Try not to get low. And I'm just watching bottom the whole time. Anytime anything happens, ready to TP, ready to TP. Bormy's overextended. Now they're out of position. Don't ask me why now and not 2 seconds ago, but this is where they're fully out of position. And this is the most impactful win condition kind of for either team. Mainly just the most impactful play I can make in this game. So we kill Ashe, we kill Alistar, even Teemo uses his 7-minute TP, and this is what really turned the game, because look at back here. We're actually kind of losing. We're losing at this point. So this, if it was a play where my bot lane got destroyed, you know, maybe in another game we lose this one, but because I got involved, I played to the win condition of the game state, impacted bot lane really heavily, we kept up really high momentum here, and we're able to win this game as well. Next up, we're going to be going through all of the notes that I wrote down from my recent Challenger climb. I'm going to be talking you through the process that I like to use for taking down notes and learning from them, how to implement it into my own gameplay, what worked, what didn't, and all of that good stuff, and what I did when I was tilting, you know, the roadblocks, or needed to make changes to my champion pool. So pretty much everything on this doc is what I utilized to improve and climb this season. So you can see before I began, I had my champion pool fully planned out and learning objectives. My goal was not to play a single game without clear goals in mind. So low diffs, high CS is sort of what we talked about in the other section of this video. I wanted to make my gameplay more consistent overall. Less 1v9 and then inting, and more consistent performances playing slightly above average or above average every single time. So low diffs, high CS, and then that means more mental stack towards jungle and the map, and less mental stack towards solo kills. Because to be honest, I was addicted to solo kills. It was very, very fun. It is fun. So I had to really lower my priority and start to enjoy tracking jungle. And then champion pool, these are some of my best champions. I would say my best 3 of all time is probably Camille, Jax, Olaf, but Camille is just really hard to blind, especially in GM and Chell, so I put her more so as a counter pick. And like I talked about in the champ pool, you can see him 80 out of like 110 of these games are all Jax and Olaf. So I mainly use these 2. So scrolling down. So block 1, you can see a lot of it is more gentle on wave 1. There's just sort of 3 notes for each one. Now there are games where you could take more than 3, and there are some where I write 3 and I have kind of 1 or 2 more things to write down that I want to note, but I don't want to do that. I want to keep it as 3 maximum, the 3 most important notes. So if I think of a 4th learning that I want to write down, I'll either cut one of them out, if it's more important than one of those 3, or I just won't write it down at all, because I don't want to come to the next day and there'd be like 300 lines of text that I want to go through. I just want 1 to 3 key points for each game. And you can see this one against brick walls, this was a loss. Against brick walls, use your TP for the team. It's not always going to be like a magical game-breaking note. Sometimes it's just going to be a little bit of a reminder. Now, one thing I did, a lot of people do result, right? Win or lose. But I actually changed it to lane result, because I don't actually mind them. Of course I care, I want to win. But I don't think there's much value, I should say it that way, of tracking that. Let's say I win 6 in a row. Does that mean I'm playing great and applying my learning objective? No. If I lose 6 in a row, am I applying does that mean I'm not doing my learning objective? Not necessarily. Probably, but not necessarily. But lane results more important. This is actually an important info for me to track, because let's say I lose to the same matchup 2 or 3 times. I can see, okay, scrolling through my notes, I've lost to Aatrox a few times. Let me study that matchup more. Let me figure out why. And if every single time I play Olaf versus Sejuani, or Olaf versus Jax is a good example, I win, because I think I've won this the last 10 times I played it. That means when I see an Olaf versus Jax matchup on someone's OPGG, I would prioritize a different matchup over that one, because I already win that one every time anyway. So you can just sort of see 3 key notes, tracking the matchup. And I tried to keep it 3 games per block. So the way I did it is I'd play a block of 3, I'd take a break like 20 to 30 minutes, and then I'd play another block. That's the way I tried to do it throughout the whole climb. and then just 3 keynotes every time. Now, it's really important that you don't get lost in the sauce. Even doing 3 per game can be a bit overwhelming, so I started doing these sort of branching out to the side. Learning objective. This is the trend I've noticed from my games, as I had a solo kill or tower plate addiction, and I was getting punished for it. So it's like, come on, like, wake up. You need to break this, like, one big wall of ticks, a line of ticks in red. This is sort of the top priority over all of this stuff. This is sort of the summary, right? Because if we go through this, let the bozos die, that means don't join into bad fights, more awareness of allied jungle. There must have been a situation where my jungle was in the mix and I didn't play around him, but that's not as important as these ones here. So I always put the big boy objectives on the side here. And you can make it look however you want. I know this doesn't look the most pretty, and some people do like images of champs and stuff. That's overkill in my opinion, but I just like it this way. Very, very simple. And then learning objective, I'm still working on this. More impactful map play over lane tunnel vision. So there are games where I did quite well in lane, but I missed a potential opportunity. I remember this early on in my journey. I missed an opportunity to TP bottom when I could have, or roam to mid. Instead, I played for a plate or trying to beat up my opponent 1v1. So I started to prioritize map play over lane tunnel vision. This actually really helped my results overall. So I started working on that for a couple of days here. Now, this is where I hit my first tilt, my first like real tilt. Of course, you're going to tilt most days you play League, but there's a big difference between slightly tilting, like realizing that the moment and bouncing back, and a difference between actually being tilted and then they ruin your game. And I let that ruin this game here, Jax versus Hen. And I might even show a little example on the screen. I think I actually clipped it in preparation for this video of what tilted me. Not even a big deal. I solo killed my lane. I was rotating down. I had the first move. It should have gone really good. If everyone played it to a base level of, let's say, Master or whatever, on their champion, we should probably get 1 or 2 kills there. It should be a really good situation. But because my mid played it poorly, I got very tilted. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they play it really well. It doesn't matter if they play it badly. This is ruining my block. This is ruining my momentum and my improvement for the client. Because I let their behavior be an important factor for me in this game. So I ended my block straight away. I'm never going to let myself the reward, or if you want to put it that way, of playing more games if I let myself get tilted, especially something so insignificant. So you can see the notes here. I became tilted after mid played the skirmish here, and 1-for-1 under tower not worth. So what I ended up learning from this is, okay, before that roam situation happened, I traded 1-for-1 under the enemy top lane's tower, and that wasn't worth it. So how dare I be tilted at this guy when I made a big mistake myself? If I didn't trade 1-for-1, you can see here, and leverage my TP advantage, I would have been in a much better position so that even if that mid play went poorly, where my mid misplayed it, I'm still in a fine spot. So definitely, this was a big learning for me, and I really hit it into every other day. I don't want to let that happen again. So you have to take tilting very seriously. Imagine I was just like, that guy played like trash, so bad, and then I queued up again. All my hard work would be getting undone. So you have to really splash yourself a bit of cold water there and don't let that momentum carry over. So we can see, still working on the same learning objective here. Now this is where I started implementing champion-specific learning objectives. And this was actually a big game changer for me, and I'll talk through it a bit more. But I set learning objectives for my gameplay overall. So for you, it could be you're working on your wave control or your base timers. I would recommend being more specific. Wave control is pretty big. Team fighting's pretty big. Get more specific, like picking your moments to go in a team fight, or target selection. And for wave control, it could be wave 2 versus wave 3 crash. So try to be more specific. So mine is breaking the solo kill and tower play addiction. That's very, very specific. And impacting map play over tunneling on lane. That's very specific. And then here I set learning objectives for my champion. So Olaf, I was wasting ulti or sums before major fights. Even though sometimes it was fine, like I'd kill people with like a solo kill or something, it wasn't worth it. My ulti or my sums were more impactful to be used at that fight than killing my lane opponent or something like that. And then Jax was more calculated trading around movement, because there were just times in the non-interactive Jax matchups, like Gragas, like Mbessa, like Rumble, where I was queuing in when I should be leading with movement, and if they don't let me lead with movement, then I just play for CS. Now, I want to showcase an example of a situation where I implemented my own feedback to myself straight away from game to game and had really good results with it. So I'll show it on the screen as I talk. But this game here, Olaf versus Quinn, there was a massive 80 carry gap, and I didn't play the big fight in a way where I made it hard for the enemy AD carry to play. I played more so in a space where I could create pressure for my AD carry, hold space and stuff like that, but the AD carry gap was so big, I should have been more creative. Even though Olaf's not really the best flanker, in that game I should have adapted and looked for those flanks. And if we compare it to the very next game, exact same thing happened. My AD carry was very bad. Their AD carry was quite good. I feared Jinx, and I played more creative, looking for those flanks, saving my sums for them, even adapting my build to a more full damage crit build to deal with the AD carry gap, because I knew that if I played a normal, more so playing off to the side like Olaf likes to do, their AD carry would hard outperform mine. And that was a big difference between game to game. I implemented an if I played the same way in game 2 as I did in game 1, maybe we could have played better. I'm not going to say it's a win because that was a harder game, but we could have performed better overall. And that's what it is. Playing better across 100, 200 games, playing a little bit better every single time. It's not about winning every single game. So you can see here, find VODs versus Cassante to study him, because I kept struggling versus Cassante, because he's just a brick wall, and I did get a bit bored and keep Jax queuing onto him. So I watched a couple of matchups as Jax versus Cassante, and just built up a bit of knowledge there. And you can see here, I have a review block. So this is where sometimes I would watch just VODs and write down what I learned. But I'm going to be honest, I was a bit lazy with writing down review blocks. There are quite a lot of VODs that I watched that I didn't write down any notes for, especially if there's only 1 or 2 learnings. But I started doing it here, and that's something you can do as well. If you don't want to play a bunch of games, you can just watch 2 or 3 VODs from solo queue and note down a bit of learning as well. That definitely helped me, especially matchups like Olaf vs Rumble. That was quite cool to see, because normally Olaf vs Rumble was playing quite passive, but I saw another Olaf play super aggressive against Rumble if he makes a certain mistake. So that's what I look out for now. It's definitely cool to see him. So going down here, keep getting caught off guard from lane gank. So start to notice trends as well amongst your gameplay. If you die to a lane gank a couple of times in a block, write it down. Try to track these trends as well. And then sometimes I'll review this in more detail tonight. So if it's a really big game, so I think after this block I had something to do. So I did a mini review, and then I came back and watched it a bit more tonight and filled out the notes in a bit more detail. Just scrolling through, and you can just see the trend now. We're doing this, and we're writing our champion specific objectives and then our overall objectives. Now, something that happened here is eventually I realized, so this is where I started to get around GM, around to Lochel, and I realized, okay, it's really hard for me to work on the 1%ers on Olaf and Jax. And I talked a lot about this in the champion pool section, so I'm not going to overdo it here. But this was definitely something that I realized, okay, I need to change it. So tomorrow's mindset, you can see here, where was it? Eventually I wrote down, swap Olaf to main champ. And I set clear objectives. These are my big 3 objectives. The big must fix objectives. You can see now we're getting very serious now. These are the big ones that I needed to fix here. So another tilted reflection here. You can see stepped away from the game. I was lucky that this was game 3, but I would have stopped anyway. Tilt, reflect, come back strong. Big 3 objectives. And then here you can see big 3 Olaf objectives, big 3 must fix. Now, I would never recommend anyone to do 6 objectives. 6 learning objectives is so much. This is probably the maximum I'd want to work on at one time. And this is after for playing pro 8 years, playing in child 10 years, you know, all that stuff. So this is pretty much the maximum. I would say most people could have 1 or 2 from each, like a champion specific objective, like optimizing your set E, not playing team fights too quickly, and then like, you know, wave 2 versus wave 3 crash or base timers or something, right? Don't try to overdo it. This was just sort of something that I could do because it's all, I've been doing it for a long time, and these are all different parts of the game. This is around Baron, stable early game, impacting early game, so it's sort of later on in the early game. And then here, when ulti's down, play respectful. It's all kind of different parts of the game. So I felt like I could do it. And it was definitely having big results. Just honing in on my Olaf. You can see him. Lane result, win, 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 win. I got really good at all the matchups here. And started winning the majority of my games. And even in my losses, I'll show a bunch of the losses on screen. You can see a lot of aces. That doesn't mean you've played well, but my performance was very consistent even in losses, even with teammates that were playing badly. One more thing I want to mention is when I slipped from my process, I really recommend sticking to it. There are a couple of times where I thought, okay, I'm going to try 4 game blocks. I want to see if I can squeeze in 4 game blocks, because part of me, and I realized this, I wanted to get this climb done quicker so that I could get back to making content and stuff for my students, working on the big YouTube videos and stuff like that. So I tried to speed it up a bit too much, but quality over quantity always. So I really regret this. You can see here, I lost this lane, won this lane, but I lost this game, I'm pretty sure. And you can see random mistakes, stop forcing queues for no reason. And it doesn't matter if you win or lose the game, to be honest. It's going to be lower. If you just randomly change your schedule, your intensity is going to be a bit lower. So the big thing about it is you kind of train your body in a way, okay, 3 games break, 3 games, do that every day. That's when you try out. If you just randomly squeeze in a 4th game for no reason, I felt definitely it had negative results. I even tried 3 blocks for a bit when I felt like I'd take a break after block 2. I tried to do it the right way. I just felt like it was way too much. I feel like if I wasn't making content after these blocks or before and coaching before, I probably could have done 3. Because when I was pro, of course, I played like 20 games a day, 15, probably 15 games a day. So it's definitely doable. But I found with my current schedule, 6 was a really, really good amount. And when I went back to my normal block, sometimes I'd cut it a bit early if I had something on that day, or if I felt like my intensity was quite low, but not mainly if I had something. You can kind of see it now, it's in a really consistent position. So one thing that I realized at the end of it, talking about changing up your schedule, that I knew I was just in such a good mindset for playing League, was my last block. So this block here, second to last block, this little red line is when I had shell. These are my new notes. But this last second to last block here, I was 1 LP off Challenger, and I didn't play a 4th game. So that's how I knew. I played well all 3 of these games. I won the lane a zillion versus some Challenger Blitzcrank, you know, even winning the off-roll game. Great work, big dog, you can see here. So this is when I was playing super well, and I just didn't play that 4th game. That would have got me Chell. That's when I knew my mindset was really, really good. I wasn't playing just to get the result. I was playing just to improve every single time. So definitely sticking to the schedule is the most important thing. Sticking to the process, but making sure you do it over a long period of time. Anyone can do something like this for a week or 2. I did it last year for a 2-week challenge and stuff like that. But sticking to it consistently is definitely the hard part. Sticking to it through lost streaks, sticking to it when you're losing lane 3 times in a row. It's the hard part, but it's something that I managed to do this climb, and it definitely made me much, much more consistent overall. Now, to wrap up this section, I'm going to be showing you exactly how I would review games after playing them. So I've got a solo queue block just played today, finished about an hour ago. So we're going to review 2 of the games from then, 1 win and 1 loss. So this game, surprisingly, looking at the kill score, was actually a win. So I played the early game to a pretty high level. I'm quite happy with it, and I hit a lot of my objectives. I impacted bottom, I even ganked mid and killed them, even though my mid 0-4, stuff like that. I was extremely impactful in the early game, but the game was still hard, and there was still a lot of learning to take away from it. Sorry, he was actually 0-6 now that we see it here. So from this point of view, I'd say I've played an almost perfect game, apart from there's one thing I looked at in the early lane. Now keep in mind, I never review the full game. That's a waste of time. I review key moments that stood out to me, or anything I was confused or unsure about. So my first note, and I'll show you the notes after, was how I played the early lane. So my game plan was, initially, I wanted to bait passive with 1 round like this, and then go for an extended trade. So my game plan, actually, I executed exactly what I sought out to do. Now, a couple of small mistakes here. I didn't get the bone plating on this first queue, so made the trade not as good. And then just one thing I realized after this trade, it can be very difficult to play the lane how I want now. Because I bothered the wave so much, after reviewing, I realized I have the wave 2 crash, which is okay, I don't mind it, but now I have to play for wave 3 and 4 with missing a lot of HP and mana, and it's quite difficult, it's quite easy for Camille to play out the situation. So the very next time I played this matchup, and I'll put a little pop-up on the screen there, I actually went for a 3-wave crash and didn't play for trade. So my main takeaway for the early lane was that it's better for me to play mainly for wave state than trades in this matchup. Early game against Camille, and then after I make it back, you know, level 4, longsword refill, all of that good stuff, then go for the extended trade so that I don't get put in this very uncomfortable position, which will happen here. But after this, we played extremely, extremely well. We outplayed the 2v2. We ganked mid, we TP'd bottom, even communicating the wards bottom, stuff like that. So all of our learning objectives were flowing in this game. So I didn't spend much time reviewing the early game, apart from that 1 to 3, because everything I've been working on, impacting mid, impacting bottom, spreading that lead, I did really well in this game. Now, this is where my first major mistake came into it. So I kind of felt a little bit of, okay, I need to keep impacting the map. The game is just exploding. I'm the only human on my team. The rest are just a bunch of aliens who escaped from the zoo or something, escaped from their spaceship. So I was trying to be very impactful. You can see here, looking at this game state, it's pretty doomed. So I really wanted to get involved. So I tried to make her play here. Now, it looks okay, but the problem, as soon as she started walking there, I should go back to top. Remembering my formula that I like to teach is you look for the play, start walking, move your camera, only commit if it looks good. It doesn't look good anymore, it looks too forced now. If she kept hitting the tower, or if she walked back through the lane, then I could go for this. So as soon as she did this, I should have called it off. And that was a really big learning for me. And even though nothing too bad happened, I burned her flash even, I didn't die or anything like that, I gave a lot of resources over to Camille, and she actually caught up to me, and I didn't get anything for it. I'm okay with her catching up to me, if I'm like killing mid and exploding the game. But even if there was a kill, to be honest, it wasn't quite worth it because I just lost so much. It's not like my team benefited from it much. It's just an extra kill for me. So that was a big mistake on my end. Now here as well, another learning I took away from the situation. I was quite on point, playing around my learning objective as Olaf. You can see I'm always talking about that. That's what I'm thinking about in my reviews. I'm sort of going through and analyzing through the lens. Did I play more respectful when my ulti was down? Did I not waste any sums? And yes to both those questions, I did pretty well in this game. And here you can see he wants to play. I'm like, no, I don't have ulti. You can see the chat. Wait for Olaf arm. I'm not getting involved in this play. I'm not getting sucked into his bad play. My learning objective, what I'm working on, is more impactful than whatever that bozo wants to do. Now, the new learning here is I didn't use the tower as well as I could have. I sort of thought we could go on the Vex here because I burned her flash previously. Where what I should have done was stand up here, blocked away from coming, just one-shot it with Q-Rav Hydra, and sort of let my team play in here, maybe drop some assist pings. So pretty much the, short way to say it, I should have used the tower more in this dive here. So this was a almost game-losing play, because if my team, if I didn't have that one try-hard voting no alongside me, we actually lose the game here, because they surrender with nothing I can do about it. So that was a game-losing mistake, potentially, from me. That was a really, really big learning from my point of view. Now, another thing that I sort of went through the VOD and just sort of skimmed through is just double checking if my summoner spells were good. Because remembering one of my key learning objectives, summoner spell usage, and this was the only one that I felt like could have been a mistake, but I thought it was less about summoner spell, more about disrespecting Soraka, because here most of the time I can kill, you see I picked up my X and flash in, most of the time I can kill Vex here, but Soraka just sort of heals her like 2000 HP, so this was sort of my one wasted summoner spell of the game. But other than that, I feel like we had a really good performance overall. I didn't really review the whole game after this, even though it would have been good to gas myself up a bit. I feel like after this, we played really well. We didn't waste sums. Our comms were good. It was just those 3 or 4 key moments that I watched. And the whole review, of course, now I'm explaining it, in detail. That whole review took me about 3 to 4 minutes, maybe a bit less than that. I really, as a general thing, don't like going past 5 minutes for a review. I feel like it really takes the fun out of it and just takes way too much time. You're kind of overanalyzing at that point. And here we have an example of a loss, and I didn't cherry pick it at all. This is just the most recent loss I just played about an hour ago, so I thought it'd be a good example of how I'd review this game. I also like this one because this is what a lot of people would say is an unwinnable game, and if I really cared about it, I would agree. I think if Zeus or whoever, some beast, played on my account, they would still lose this game. I don't think it was fully in my control. And that's okay, that doesn't really matter to me at this point. A big trap I used to fall into was I was unwinnable, and I'd get frustrated or put less effort in the review. But I reviewed this game exactly the same. So you kind of see actually what I talked about. I versed the same Camille, and this time I played mainly for the wave. Beautiful 3-wave crash, 17 out of 19 CS, that could have been a bit better. But the early game, exactly what I wanted. Now, my game plan, I executed exactly what I wanted to do, but the execution was a little bit off. And this is where it gets really, really fun to me, when your mindset, your decision making is spot on, and then you have to tune up the execution a little bit. So I'm taking little short trades, trimming the wave. If she ever backs off in TP, she loses like 3 or 4 minions, especially if I stop her back, so I'm in a really happy position here. So I'm playing my lane the perfect way that I want to. If she bases, you can see here, this is where the execution, I fell into the trap. So what I wanted to do is do one trade to bait out her Camille passive, and then one trade to all in her. So where was it? Here, her Camille passive was on cooldown, so I went for the all-in. We popped the ghost and we run at her, but the problem is I burned her passive way too long ago. So it actually came up during this all-in, and if you want to check how, on the top left, I play off visual sound in the game, but on the top left, you can see no passive, no passive, no passive, and then boom, there it is. So my all-in timer, she had her passive in this time, so it just wasn't worth going for her. And there I thought I could get lucky and get like an auto Q, but it's just way too big of a thing. I shouldn't have even flashed him. So my main learning wasn't the flash or whatever. That was of course obviously bad. The main learning was the timer I chose for the all-in. So what I should have actually done is just let her go now without ghosting. And just sort of played around the fact that her passive will come up. And then if I base right now, she's going to lose way more than me. This would have been really good. But because I took a tower shot, then she felt confident to stay, and even though I still played out the situation okay, and I'm fine and I didn't die or anything like that, she was able to get a really good recall off, where she didn't lose that much because she only has 1 extra minion here, and the wave's in a favorable state compared to back here, where if I'm this healthy, she has to base. If she walks up, she'll die. So that was my main learning from the game. This situation here, and to get more specific, it's when you're playing to bait out cooldown, make sure you play around the fact that it's going to come back up during your all-in. So it could be a Jaxi, or if you're a parry, Camille passive, anything like that, you have to play different when it could come back up during your all-in, so that you don't waste all your resources or summoner spells. But other than that, you can see it was fine. And then our second learning, tying it back to our learning objective, I want a consistent early game, right? That's my default baseline. If I'm really high CS and 0 diffs, even if I'm down a little bit of farm versus a bad matchup, and up a bit of farm versus a good one, I'm really happy with that as my baseline. But I didn't have a consistent early game. I died to a gank. So my main learning was typically versus Camille, you need to have that switch in your mind. There are different champs in the game that you have to play differently against. If I'm versus a Scion right now, I can do this, because I'll just pop ulti and run away. I'm fine. Camille, really good into Olaf. Your ulti does not work. You can unfortunately not run out of her ulti. So her gank setup is just on another level compared to any other champion. Everything about other champs with good gank setup, like Sejuani top or Cho'Gath, not Cho'Gath, Maokai, champs like that, Ornn, they don't really matter to Olaf. So because my wave was in a good state and I was really healthy, I felt confident here. I didn't play differently, even though I was versing a Camille. So that's my big learning from this game, the second one. So those were my big 2 takeaways. After that, if we just skip ahead, you'll see, even though I sort of maintained my deficit here, despite all the boys coming up and ganking me time after time, this game was just completely unwinnable, which is fine. You can't win every single game that you play, but all you can do is take as much learning as possible, and because of those 2 early game things, I'm walking away with this game 1 or 2% better than I was before I played it. So really, I got the mental LP from this one. So you can just kind of see the mindset, even in a terrible loss where you couldn't have killed the Nexus, you still want to juice as much learning as possible for the next time you're in the situation where maybe your team being 10 or 15% better, you can actually be more of a difference maker. Moving on to intensity, and in my opinion, this is one of the most important things by far to have a successful climb. Not just in League, but anything in life, having high intensity is mandatory. When I first got Challenger as a kid, all of those years ago, I had no process. There was no educational content. There was not much reviewing, anything like that. It was just pure intensity. I just wanted to win so badly, and that's how I did well. I just wanted to win so much more than basically everyone else. It was pure intensity. So now I've got a good process. I understand the game well, understand how to improve specifically, and I had to bring back the same level, maybe not the same level, but a good level of intensity as well. Really, really important. You need to go into your games with a high feeling of urgency and purpose. You are queuing up for a reason. Yes, League's a game and it should be fun, but if you want to climb consistently and at a steady pace, you need that level of intensity. Sure, just playing for fun, you will improve a little bit, but that's not why you're here. That's not why you're watching that. So if you really want to improve at a consistent, steady rate, you need the strong feeling of urgency and purpose. You can't just, I entered that game, I just trolled that game. Every game has to feel very, very important to you. And that's a really important step to build up that intensity. So you need to attack every game you play. I think a big trap people fall into, especially League's a game you play 500, 600 games a season, maybe more for some people, maybe less for others, but that's a lot of games. It's a lot of time. It can be very easy for those games to blend together and bleed together. One thing I did very well this year was treating every game as an individual. I thought a lot about every single game. I didn't give myself a write-off like free win, sweet, free loss, just threw that one. I played bad. None of those bullshit excuses. Every game is very, very important. If you go into games attacking them and you take the out of game seriously as well and not let them bleed together like a block of 6 games or something, that's going to be a really important step for you to build up intensity. So the thing here that I kind of briefly mentioned there, every game that you play, there's going to be free wins, free losses, and those hard games. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your teammates are, one of them's AFK. It doesn't matter if they sell their items. The goal is for your intensity to stay the same. Now, we're not a robot, of course. It's not going to be perfect every single time, but that's the goal. And if you ever feel like your intensity dropped for the game, you need to step away, you need to reflect on it, and make it really important. One thing I want to touch on is I had this really bad habit that I had to work on, where when I won lane, I sort of exhaled. I kind of relaxed, because a lot of the matchups I play are very difficult because I don't play the meta OP champions. I have to vis champs like Rumble and Abyssa and all these broken champs, or if I blind pick Jax, I have to vis like Kennen. So when I'd win lane, when I'd play it to a really high level and win lane, I would sort of relax, like, nice, I've done it, right? My job's done, and then die to a gank or throw my lead in a bad trade or something like that. That was a really bad habit I had. So it's important that no matter if you smash your lane, if you lose your lane, if you die to a gank, you need to have that same level of intensity. And it's a big thing that I fixed this year. Really, really impactful. Now, this intensity needs to apply to the outside of game as well, because I'm not going to lie. Last year, I was trying in a lot of the games. I'm not going to say every single game, but there were periods where I was like, okay, I want to try out on my main champs, of course. I didn't only make guides last year. So my in-game intensity, I was trying to win, but my out-of-game intensity wasn't there. Out of game, all I was thinking about was content, coaching, all the other priorities in my life, of course. But thinking about it outside of the game, these games are really important. That those mistakes are really impactful. Thinking about that outside of the game, at the gym, when I'm lying in bed at night, all that stuff, that was a big difference maker for me. And that may seem like a lot, that's a lot of effort, stuff like that. But this is a challenger climb. It's not going to be the same level, to go from bronze to silver. You have to think about League 24/7, of course. And so the lower you go, the less effort you would have to put in. But I still think it's good. It's a good habit to put in high intensity to everything you do, if you can. So even if you're climbing from bronze to silver, gold to plat, if you can increase your intensity inside the game, outside the game, I think it's a great habit to have, not just for League, but also anything else you want to try in life. So what I want to touch on now that we briefly understand what I mean by intensity, is how to actually improve your intensity. So what I did to go from someone who, after I retired, to be completely honest, I didn't care that much about my individual skill. Of course, I still cared. One, looking for my students, stuff like that. Of course, I'm not saying I didn't care, but it was nowhere near the same. When I was pro, it was like my whole body was on fire. Like I had to play good. It was so impactful, so important. So it was very, very different. So I had to build up my intensity to a good level. Not an unhealthy level like it was for a lot of those years I played pro, but I had to increase it to the point where I really cared about every game that I was playing. So one thing that I did was I reflected before the season started and I found a clear goal that I'm passionate about. The goal that worked for me is going to be different for everyone. The goal that worked for me was I wanted to get to a really high level to show my students that the processes I talk about, that taking notes, the effort that I'm asking them to put in, it can pay off. So I increased it from Master to Korean Challenger in a pretty short amount of time, to be honest, from applying this process. Now, of course, it's easier to get back somewhere if you've been there before. It's easier to get Challenger if you've hit it before than get it from the first time. It's easier to bench 3 plates if you've done it before. It's the same like that. But still, you have to improve. You have to put in the work, and that's something I really felt passionate about showing. That's the main reason why I played. Where back when I was pro, it's like, we have to win this tournament or the year is wasted. It's very easy. It's very obvious, clear reasons why you're trying. But when you're not playing pro, which is 99.9% of everyone, then you need to find your reason. It could just be you want to practice the skill of putting it into something and having success. You could just love the game and you want to play to a high level. You might just want to be better than all your friends because they keep shit talking you for being in silver. There's no matter what reason, you have to reflect on it, find it, hold on to it, and that's sort of your driving force. That's the fuel that you need to use. Now, pre-game routine. So every single day before my block, I had a pre-game routine this year. What I would do is I'd meditate for a little bit and I'd play something that hyped me up. So a little bit of a hype video. So I would normally do, famous battles like Faker versus Ruler, the pre-Worlds video, or Faker versus Chovy, some bangers, Gohan versus Cell, Coach Chippys versus Beryl, all the classic battles. I would just watch one of those, get hyped, get in the zone, and then before I press Q up, I was sort of ready to go. And then before I'd close everything, no tabs, nothing like that. The only thing I would look at would be my notes, the league client, your champ select, and also the replay after the games are over. So those were the only 3 things I would look at during my blocks. Really, really important there. And yeah, the hype song just to sort of, it can be a different song, it can be a different sport, whatever you want to watch, but it's just to get you in the zone. Try not to listen to something you listen to regularly. Like, for example, I wouldn't listen to a song that I listen to at the gym or something like that, because you want it to be something that you only listen to when you're ready to lock in. That's something I did back when I was pro, before matches, sort of play something hype, and just try to keep it just for that reason alone. Really impactful there. So going to every game. So in terms of actual improvement, using this intensity to improve. Because intensity doesn't mean I want to kill the Nexus super bad, it's you want to improve. So every single game I played, I had very clear goals. I'm only pressing Q up to work on these 3 to 5 things. If I didn't have things to work on, I wouldn't Q up, right? That is the point. And if you go into every game with that mindset, you're going to do way better than going into the game trying to kill Nexuses, because killing the Nexus is not always in your control. And then if you don't kill the Nexus, you feel like you wasted time. But for me, when I'm working on these goals, even if I lost, if I did well on my learning objectives, I felt good. If I won the game and carried and stomped them, but I didn't do well on my objectives, I felt way worse than when I lost. And that's when I sort of felt like, okay, I'm in the really good headspace right now for improving, because I don't really care about the Nexus that much. Yes, I do care. I'm not going to bullshit. When I win a lot, it felt great. When I win a lost streak, it felt bad. Of course, no different to everyone else. But I would say the main thing I felt a strong connection to was doing well on my goals, doing well on my learning objectives, not just playing well as a general thing, very specific. Games where, I'll give some examples, I didn't get caught inside on Olaf and lose my sums. Games where I picked my fights really well. Games where I looked to impact bottom with my first TP, or the first free TP. If I did those things well, I was super happy. If I did them badly, it doesn't matter who won, I wasn't that happy about it, and I took it very, very seriously. Now, something that I really like to talk about here, I've already mentioned thinking about these goals outside of the game. So I'm not just thinking about League as a whole, like, oh, what build might be fun on Olaf. I'm thinking about my learning objectives. Like, okay, I really need to work on this. I remember those 2 games yesterday. I got caught inside that one time in 18 minutes. You know, I'm really thinking about the games. And this is something that's important, because a lot of the time when I ask a student, you know, does your opponent, even a game they just played, like, does your opponent have TP or Ignite? And they don't know, and they're not sure, or who is their enemy jungler, and they don't know. The intensity's lacking. The intensity is lacking. I could go into any game in my match history and just see my matchup, and I'll know the jungle matchup. I'll know if my lane opponent had TP or Ignite, because this is really important to the game. And of course, if you're playing in low ranks, you know, keeping tabs of all that stuff is less important, but it still kind of speaks to intensity, because knowing if your opponent has Ignite or TP, that dictates how you play the matchup. So I'm getting a bit off topic, but basically what I'm saying, think about your goals outside of the game. If your learning objective is wave control, think about your recent games, sort of visualize it in your head, and think about what you did wrong in your recent games and how you're going to impact, okay, I've been doing badly on the wave 2 versus wave 3 crash. Let me rewatch that Coach Chippys wave control video and go into this game trying to work on it. You know, bring that intensity out of game as well, and it'll help you in game. And again, it's something that I feel like even, it's not just putting in effort makes you better. You're kind of showing yourself that you're putting in this effort, and it makes you want to do better, makes you want to improve more. I feel like there's that element to it as well. It's really, really important there. The guy that's just really productive on his day is going to outperform the second one, because he's really used to that high intensity schedule. Most of his time is spent being productive and doing well. But if you're kind of half-assing your day, it's really easy to half-ass your league day as well. So this is kind of teaching you to do well at life, I guess, and league as well. But I think there's pretty similar overlaps there. If you're really, really high intensity in your league games, take them more seriously. If you can do that 3-4 hours every day, you can do that, or no, 2 to 4 hours every day, you can definitely, that's going to benefit your real life as well, 100%. Now, the final thing here, consistency is key. You're going to hear me say this a lot, but this is not going to be a smooth journey. In my opinion, climbing in League is not about you're going to go up 10 LP every day until you hit your goals. No, you're going to have good days. You're going to have shit days. It's very fluctuating, up and down, up and down, up and down. This is going to happen. But if you can keep the same process, the same level of effort and intensity when you hit a 4 loss streak or when you hit a 9 win streak, then you're going to be in a really good position. The thing that made me realize, okay, I'm doing really well. The thing that made me like, nice, this is a wrap. Like, my process is so good, was my second to last day on the Chow climb. I was 1 LP off Challenger, and I didn't play. My block was done. You know how badly I wanted to play that game, but I didn't. I'll just stick to my schedule, stick to the process, because let's say I played that game and won, right? It wouldn't have been at full power, but let's say I played that game and lost, that's going to bleed into the next game. It's like, I'm undisciplined. Why did I do that? Those thoughts are going to plague my mind a bit. So definitely that's when I knew it's like, all right, I'm going to do well here. So the most important thing is consistency. And the hard games and the loss streaks and the win streaks, you need to keep it up. You need to keep it intense, because having high intensity is the best way to make your climb really, really consistent. Again, bringing it back. 2 people that played the exact same amount of games on League. One's discording with the boys in queue. One's, you know, just messing around out of game, scrolling their phone and champ select, stuff like that. And the other one fully locks in for this exact same amount of time every day. Full try-hard schedule, reviewing the games, taking notes. And then after, maybe he goes out with his friends or has a bit of fun, the second one's going to outperform every single time. So high intensity, set that time of the day where you're locking in. And I promise you, it's going to give you way better results than just casually playing. So here I have a quick example of exactly what playing with high intensity looks like. Look at this game state right now. We're 0-7. I'm 0-3-0 with god-awful CS, and playing up against one of my least favorite champions to verse in lane, Rumble, champion who's been broken for 2 years. All of the cards are stacked against me to be stressed this game, to tilt, to relax a little bit. But my intensity was very, very high, even from this point here. So just one-shot the wave. Walk back here, he's trying to pull the wave, fine. 2 minutes is in a perma freeze. If I walk up from this far behind, I will die trying to get in that next wave. So I take the small loss, base, and just come back. Sure, I'll bleed out a bit of farm, better than dying and bleeding out more farm. As long as I can maintain this deficit and not let it grow more and more and more, this game is still perfectly winnable, potentially later on. Something that's really helped me is the mindset of early game and mid game are not the same thing. So what I mean by that is if you lose in the early game, you can just sort of tell yourself, okay, I'm going to get shit on early game. I'm behind early game. Let me play for the mid game. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm not trying to kill Rumble. I'm not trying to come back into the game and carry my team who's all losing alongside me. I'm just trying to maintain this deficit, stay as healthy as possible, and not make any future mistakes. Now I'm still doing good plays, of course. My jungler is playing for grubs right now, so I have freeze the wave a little bit, so that Rumble feels risky to farm here. So I'm still, of course, making good plays. I'm not just sitting under tower doing nothing, but I'm not taking any risk. I'm not forcing onto Rumble, a champ who's impossible to force an advantage against if they play well. He's playing purely for farm here. So Q him, get that minion, back up, back up. Okay, you want to freeze again? Fine, I'll just base again, take another small loss. Because my alternative is walking up and getting one shot from full HP on this wave. I bet you can tell, don't like versing Rumble that much. But that Ignite Rumble could easily kill me on that freezer. So again, I have to base, lose another wave or lose another wave there. But better than dying. Now I'm full HP of Hex Drinker, I can actually kind of play the game. So get the wave in. It's hard push this one. He uses ulti here. The specifics don't matter that much. Playing from behind is mainly your mindset. And knowing when to take small losses is kind of the execution based. And then looking for opportunities. So yeah, I've been playing respectful the whole time. So this is actually important. So yeah, the wave's coming back to me. But he made a mistake. He stayed too far forward. He made a positioning mistake. He's a ranged champion. He's got no W up right now and no Q, and he's too far forward. If he played properly, he's feeling confident because he's ahead. If he played properly and sat back here, I wouldn't be able to get this opportunity. And in my experience, the best way to play from behind is making your opponent bored. For these past 4 minutes or 5 minutes that we skimmed through, he has not been able to kill me or really trade with me or get any dopamine because I just keep basing and taking the small losses. So this is sort of a mistake that he made. That's caused by the mental anguish of not being able to get solo kills and progress with your lead that most top laners seem to experience. So I got him to half HP there. And just keep lifestealing off the wave. And then he made another mistake here. So he just used his whole Q again. And missed his aim. So I go for this kill here. Auto W, auto Q. Pick up a nice clean solo kill. Remember, I didn't solo kill that guy. He just made a mistake. I didn't kill him. He just didn't space properly here and here. That's why he died. So that's the mindset there. I didn't try to kill him. I just accepted his suicide because he didn't play the matchup correctly because he got so bored from the past 5 minutes. And now we're sort of okay. We're still behind. He can still shit on us, but we're okay now. So just sort of farming, getting my quest done, respecting on weak side. Nothing special here. One more thing I want to show is when the game turns around. Here. I've got my TP, I'm basing, I'm looking for this play, I'm watching, and see my intensity is really high. I'm looking for these opportunities. I'm actively hungry to influence this game, even though everyone on my team, including myself, has played poorly so far. TP in, all in. Look at the chat, look at all my waypings. That's intensity. That's somebody who wants to win this game, even though they started 0-3 and their whole team, all 5 roles got shit on at the beginning. Actually, I think Azir did pretty well. Sorry to throw him under the bus. Yeah, he's doing good. All 4 roles except mid got shit on. So you can see we sort of pulled it back there. Get my stride breaker. Push, start rotating down, another play, Dragon's up at 40, we're making bot plays, I'm in a non-attractive lane versus Phase Rush Rumble, I go here, I feel like the Vi might make a pick on the Lucian, because the Lucian's the only play on the map, hide here, hide here, boom, the reason I hugged this wall by the way, if Vi walks in with Sweeper, she'd see me if I was there, or if she's on the side of the wall with Sweeper, she'd see me, so I wanted to avoid her, and then walk up, boom, hug the wall so she can't Q, and then we get a kill, and I save Lucian's life. 90% chance that guy dies there, let's be real. So now you can see the game momentum swung completely back in our team's favor. I'm level 13, the same level as Rumble. Pretty solid farm, even though I had to take all of those small losses. Those small losses in the moment, of course, feel terrible to make, but they're not going to lose you the game. You're never going to lose the game for giving one wave or respecting jungle when you could kill your opponent. All these little things. It's all about the big moments, and if you're behind, you're not going to be ready for those opportunities. So really playing with full intensity, regardless of how ugly the game state looks. Look at the starting position, and then look at what we skimmed to, around now, after we made all those good plays, this game feels great. That's why the early and the mid game has to be separate, because you can always pull it back. But if I didn't take those small losses and Rumble killed me 4 or 5 times, this game would have been a complete loss, and I probably would have been tilted heading into the next one, because I just completely ran it down. But because I stabilized it, not only did we win, but I had really good momentum and sort of confidence to perform even from behind, heading into all my future games on this block. Next up, I'm going to be covering how I increase my in-game focus. And in my opinion, this is quite different to intensity, because even if you feel very passionate about the game, actively trying to improve, it can be hard to stay very focused throughout an entire league game, especially multiple back-to-back, and even more so on like a big win streak or a big loss streak. It can be easier for your mind to wander, especially with a lot of things going on in your life. And this is something I got to experience because back when I was playing Pro, I had not much trouble with this, because every single day, scrim, solo queue, thinking about the game, even if I got to dinner with my teammates, we're talking about the game the whole time. So when it comes to playing, it's very easy to just focus on the task at hand. But now there's a lot that I need to juggle in my life, more than just playing this one game. I've also got to make content for TLA, for YouTube. I need to make sure I've got the thumbnails, editing. I need to keep going gym consistently, change my schedule, make sure I win Mr. Olympia someday. Got a wife as well. All of these other priorities in my life take a lot of time and effort. And I found a lot last year when I was playing. I'd be thinking about that. I'd be thinking about what content I want to make. If I make a good play, I'll be structuring the video in my mind, and my mind would wander a lot. And for other people, you might have exams coming up. You might have a more stressful week than normal at your job, and that can really distract you. So something that I really worked on is making sure I can maintain focus for a block of time every single day. So the most important thing is to set a consistent routine. Something that I kind of did last year was played a little bit sometimes. Sometimes I'd play at night, and it was very inconsistent. So it's very hard for me to lock in and get in the zone at a certain point of the day. So it's really important that you set, this is my time where I've got full intensity, full triad of my league block. Now, of course, sometimes you might work night shifts someday, day shifts the other. It might be different for everyone, of course. So you want to make it as consistent as possible. Let's say you have night blocks, maybe those games you have night blocks you play during the day, but it's the same days every single week. So you kind of get used to it. You just have to adapt to what you can. Not everyone's schedule is going to be something that you can do every single day, but that's the goal. That's what you want to try to get to as close as possible. So what I would do is I set this block of time throughout the day, and I would eliminate all distractions. I'll never play a different game, no YouTube video, no social media, no Discording with the boys, no matter how fun that is, no alt-tabbing at all, fully lock in. All I'll do in that block of time, is think about the game, watch my replays back, take notes, go over my notes, and just lock in for that 2 to 3 hours every day. That was the most important thing that I changed to make sure I could focus better. And you really train yourself to get into the zone in that moment, because if every day you're try-harding, your body gets used to it. All right, this is when he's locking in. This is when it's kind of like a sleep schedule. If you wake up at the same time every day, your body gets used to it. Same with a lock-in schedule. Now, something else I did as well is removing unproductive habits from my life. Of course, not everything. I'm not a perfect robot, but I really cut down on unproductive, like different games, random videos on my PC. So that when I step into the office, it's more so like a try-hard zone. And my phone as well, I pretty much stopped using it entirely, to be honest. All I used it for was the TLA, Top Lane Academy, because keeping up with the community, replying to all my students, that is really important for me. So that's something that I kept, but I removed all other social medias or anything like that. So the only main time I'd use my phone before was kind of in the morning, when you're just doom scrolling in the morning, or at night. Remove that entirely, just fully locking in. And then at the gym between sets, I would just go through my notes or think about the game, like look at my OPGG and just think about the games that I played and really start thinking about my plan. Because my schedule, we'll talk about the schedule in the schedule section, of course, was after gym, I'd play my game. So I was thinking about, okay, this is what I need to work on. This is what I struggled on yesterday, and just really helping myself lock in. So, and it wasn't just, doing that, thinking that extra time that helped. It definitely did, but just removing unproductive habits from your life just kind of helps you lock in a bit more. You can imagine somebody that just doom scrolls and goes on social media 3-4 hours a day compared to someone who doesn't have a phone. The second guy's going to be able to focus better, of course, right? So that's something I did. And again, I'm not saying you have to be a monk and be perfect and all of that stuff. There were times where I slipped up, of course, but that's just the goal. Eliminate unproductive habits that are kind of distracting and just clouding your mind, and you're going to be able to focus at the task at hand a lot easier. And that gives you more time to reflect about the game as well. Now, sleep schedule is what I optimize. So stop using phone before bed, so that my sleep quality would be higher. I also did some other things to increase the sleep quality, but same time every day. Before, sometimes if the missus wanted to watch a show or something, I'd be like, all right, I could stay up an extra 30, 40. For the Challenger climb, I was like, nope, it's 11, straight to bed. There's no exceptions, and that helped a lot as well, making it more consistent. Because there were times where last year I'd wake up at different times, made it exactly the same. Even on the weekend, it's pretty much the same thing. And that also helped. So consistency is key here. And then finally, meditation was definitely helpful, but I'm not going to bullshit you and be like, meditate 45 minutes each day. That's too boring. I couldn't do that. I did do one big meditation kind of session before the season began, just to really, lock in, think about my priorities, stuff like that. Now I just do like 5 minutes before my first game of the day, and it helps me sort of get focused, try to remove all the distractions of the day, and then lock in. So that definitely helped. So I'll just say the biggest thing is that can help you. If you're eliminating waste out of the game, if you're getting a better schedule, if you're putting in effort, if you're cutting bad habits, it's going to help you lock in, it's going to help you focus, it's going to increase your intensity in the game as well. And part of it might be actual changes to the brain, of course, not doom scrolling and stuff like that, but part of it might just be kind of showing yourself like, I'm putting in effort here, I deserve to do well, I deserve to lock in, I want to do well in this game, I want to try hard because I'm putting all this effort in out of the game as well. So it's definitely something that I feel like partly contributes. So this is what I did. Of course, I'm not going to say, I'm a study on focus or anything like that. This is just what I did to increase my focus overall, and it helps significantly compared to how I was last year. Now, to wrap up this very big guide, it's almost coming to an end. Respect to all of you who made it this far. I'm going to be breaking down the schedule that I set for myself for this Challenger climb. Now, the most important thing to keep in mind, regardless of how busy or how chill your schedule might be, what priorities you have, consistency is key. If you get your schedule as consistent as possible day to day, that is the most important thing. But I'll go down mine and talk you through it. So I try to wake up at the same time every single day, which is around 7:45. It used to be some days I'd wake up then, and some days I'd wake up, 8 or 8:15. But consistency is the most important, so I do that every single day. Sometimes on a weekend I'll wake up 7:55. That's kind of my small victory, but I pretty much wake up at this time anyway naturally. So then I'll have breakfast after waking up, and then I'll start my work in the Top Lane Academy. So it's not just coaching. I like to get really involved with the community, answering VOD questions, helping people with their champion pool, any questions they might have. Usually by the time I wake up, there's a lot of stuff ready to do them, or I can prepare content that I want to make in the TLA. So I try to use that hour very productively. Then I start my coaching at 9, and it goes to about 10:45. The group coaching session, answering questions, uploading the coaching VODs to the website for everyone to watch, all of that good stuff. Then off to the gym and shower. The reason why, I found that if I don't go gym, if I play some games after coaching or any games before gym, I've kind of got a bit of fog of war in my brain, and it's a lot harder to focus. But it wasn't always like that. My first gym schedule, I'd go at like 1 a.m. with the boys, so it really doesn't matter when you go. Just try to go to a similar time every day. I like to go gym, shower, and lunch before I play my block, so I'm as fresh as possible. Not hungry, not stinky, muscles are all pumped up, so that's the most optimal for me. So I go gym and shower, then eat lunch, and then my pre-game lock-in. So that's what we talked a bit about, where I would just sort of meditate for a little bit, watch a pre-game hype video, something along those lines, and then once I'm in the right headspace, queue up for the day. And I've got everything closed all my browsers or anything that could be distracting, and we are purely focusing in on League. So I play 2 blocks for this Chow climb. After this climb, I dropped it down to 1. I just played the 1 block now, because 2 blocks is quite a lot of time to do long-term while balancing everything else that I have here. So I just do the 2 blocks for this climb and a 15-minute or a 20-minute break in between them. Now, because Challenger queue times are career queue times, are pretty quick, I would get this done around 4 or 4:30. So it's around 3 hours to 3.5 for my 2 blocks. So definitely a lot of time for some people, might not be that much time for others, but keep in mind doing this with 1 block, perfectly fine. I would say 20 games a week is a very, very good base. 20 games a week is a really good base to play off of. Now, at this time, I'll start my work, which is mainly recording content, preparing videos. My vids take a long time to prepare. I don't often just pull a couple games from stream. Most of my content is very, very planned out. Need to find a bunch of examples, plan what I want to showcase. Recording, it takes a long time, all of that good stuff. Then I'd normally do that until about dinner time, eat that, and then I like to study a bit of Korean after dinner. But I'm going to change that now to studying Korean after my first block, because I'm only going to play 1 block now, because I do get pretty tired and hard to focus, hard to learn Korean around that time. But that's what I was doing there. Then I'd start recording content and preparing videos again. Sometimes, I'm not a robot, I wouldn't just wake up till night every time, with the gym break in the middle. Sometimes I'll chill around that time, but most of the time I'd want to get work done, and then I'd do free time either at 9 to 11 or 10 to 11. just whenever. It really depends on the day. But I try to keep my days productive. It's just something I'm used to from when I used to play pro. Every day was very, very like rise and grind, rise and grind. I'm very used to that lifestyle. So I don't really like just sitting around doing nothing that often. But of course, sometimes I will, and then bed every single time. So last year I was a bit more lax with it. If the missus wanted to watch a show or something, like sure. But this for this climb, I was just like, nope, 11, boom, straight to sleep, no distractions. And I'll make sure not to use my phone, after dinner at all, just to keep my mind a bit free and locked in there. So you can see it's not the most crazy schedule of all time. The most important is might be, a bit busy for some people. It might be quite chill for others who are working and studying full time, stuff like that. Whatever it is, just making sure the most important thing is consistency. If you can play the same amount at the same amount of time, at the same time, as many days as possible throughout the week, that is optimal. Yes, that's not possible for everyone, and I'm not saying it's not possible without that. It's important and it will benefit you, but it's not mandatory. Especially if you're, a full-time family, at work, all that stuff, and you want to climb from gold to plat or plat to emerald. Of course, you can imagine climbing lower ranks to high ranks is a lot less of a commitment than Grandmaster to Chow or Master to Chow, right? So I'm not saying you need to have this, you need to play 3 hours every single day, anything like that. This would have definitely been possible. Me, after playing it, realizing one block would have been possible for sure. It would have taken probably twice as long because, twice as many games, but it would have been possible for sure as long as my process, my learning, my effort was consistent. Just keep in mind, if you play less games, higher intensity. Somebody that plays 6 games, just chilling, talking in Discord, watching random videos in queue, compared to someone that only plays 2 or 3 a day, but they're fully locked in, fully try hard, taking notes, actively working on their learning objectives, that guy will outperform every time, even though they've got less time in their day to work on those things. So definitely the most important thing you can see here, just try to keep it consistent and try to make sure that block of time, that is when you're locking in. That's not when you're chilling and alt-tabbing and messing around. Sort of train your body. So for me, you can see it's around 12:50 or 1. That's when I was getting in the zone. That's when we're going to war. Every time I would say, before my block a game, I'd say to the wife, the men are going to war today. And she's probably thinking something along the lines of, shut up, you nerd, you're just playing some games. But, that's how I sort of trick myself to lock in a little bit. So make sure, no matter what, that is your time of the day where you lock in and your consistency will follow. Alright team, at long last this absolute movie of a guide is finally complete. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned a bunch of things along the way. This was definitely a big project to get done, so any support, like, subs, all of that good stuff is greatly appreciated or motivate me to make other videos of this scale. And as usual, if you have any questions at all, make sure you let me know in the comments. I'll definitely help you out there. And just keep in mind, even though there's a lot to take in from this video, don't feel too overwhelmed. You don't have to apply literally everything I mentioned, especially if you have a really busy life, full-time studying, working, all that good stuff. League is just something that you can develop on the side of your busy schedule, and that's going to help you in anything you work on in life if you do it the right way. Somebody that actually puts in the time to get good at League properly is going to have a much better time doing that to other skills later on in life compared to somebody who just casually plays and flames their jungler every day. So I hope this video gave you some value, and I'll see you all for the next one.